officers can guide them to plenary 2 so that they do not miss their chance to make their statements. So the DLOs, please check your record, and if your respective head of state, head of government that you are looking after is required in plenary 2, to please swiftly move to plenary 2 to get us started. Thank you. Excellencies, kindly take your seats. Please, kindly take your seats so that we can start. If you could be able to take your seats now, I see quite a big crowd on the corridor there. If you could take your seats, we'll be able to start immediately.
Can you please take your seats? I kindly request that you all take your seats, please. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, honored guests, welcome to the ceremonial opening of the first part of the high-level segment for heads of states and government on the occasion of the 28th session of the Conference of Parties. The 18th session of the Conference of Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol, and the 5th session of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Paris Agreement. Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, Presidents and Prime Ministers, I am deeply humbled and honored to have the opportunity to welcome you today. And allow me to begin by thanking all of you for your presence with us here in the United Arab Emirates. As the largest gathering of world leaders to attend a COP summit, you are collectively demonstrating your real commitment to climate action. Yesterday, on the first day of Cop28, we collectively made history. We achieved consensus on a fund for climate impact response that will protect lives and livelihoods, especially the most vulnerable. Your leadership guided this consensus, and I thank you all. I'm very grateful that so many countries have already stepped up and made contributions to the fund. I hope many more will follow. In addition, I was thankful that the Cop28 agenda was voted and agreed without any delay. This was also made possible by your support and full engagement. And it allows us to get down to work immediately on the key issues that we must address across the climate agenda. I will do everything in my power to channel the momentum you generate at this summit into an ambitious response to the global stocktake and to keep the North Star of 1.5 within reach. Excellencies, I am looking forward to hearing your national statements and commitments, and I count on your continued support to raise climate ambition and to translate those ambitions into real results. Thank you. Excellencies, this afternoon we are honored to have with us His Excellency Mr. Denis Francis, the President of the United Nations General Assembly, and His Excellency Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India. Distinguished delegates, it is my pleasure to invite the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat, Mr. Simon Steele, to address the plenary. Simon, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Ministers, honourable guests, I must begin by thanking the United Arab Emirates for their warm hospitality here in Dubai. Working with your team over the last year to prepare this event has been a pleasure. Looking out at this World Climate Action Summit, it's incredible to see so many leaders convened in one place. The strength of this demonstration of multilateralism is a testament to the scale of the problem we're convened here to address. The UNFCCC was born in 1992, when both the world and this crisis looked very different than they do today. But for me, 1992 was the year climate change became real. It was the year my father proactively built a sea wall to protect his island home. He'd never heard the concept of climate change, and his neighbours mocked him for how high he built it, how deep the foundations were, and how much of his own money he spent. Today, the ocean is right up against that sturdy wall, pounding it. Its very foundations are exposed. This is why, when some are cynical about the pace or value of COPs, I know at heart this process is our only hope to turn the tide. Some of you sitting here before me share my first-hand experience and even more extreme experiences. For others, it's still a mental leap. But let me assure you, the leap becomes much shorter as the impacts lap around you. This isn't about far-flung places. In the hottest year ever, it's at everybody's doorstep, continent by continent, region by region, country by country. None of us are immune. Some leaders here are newly elected. You have the whole term to plan ahead. Some leaders are here nearing the end of your term, more cautiously facing selection cycles. Both governed by the ebbs and flows of your political circumstances. I understand the realpolitik of your decision-making, but the climate crisis transcends these cycles. Empty promises, unfulfilled pledges, abandoned commitments after the photo ops won't help. It won't help the negotiators. It won't help your citizens. It is only by uniting in our fight will we rise to the expectations that Cop28 will result in bold commitments. Bold commitments to bend the arch of global warming down from 3 degrees to 1.5. It's only by uniting in your commitment to doing this together that we'll fully respond to the needs of those affected and ensure that development and climate action are mutually reinforcing. It's only by focusing on understanding each other that we'll work out how to live in a fossil-free world. It's only by your leadership that we'll be able to use this global stocktake to accelerate the action taken thus far. Your political messages must translate into real, tangible action. Action that should be felt in the negotiating rooms. Action translated into the text that's gavelled on December the 12th. My job is simply to facilitate the process and make sure it's as fair, transparent, and just as possible. It's only the political signals you send today and their follow-up actions that can take us to a place beyond the encroaching seas. I thank you.
Thank you, Executive Secretary. It is my distinct pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, to deliver a message to the plenary. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Excellencies, Ladies and Gentlemen, 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की ओर से आप सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। आज सबसे पहले मैं आप सभी का आभार व्यक्त करूंगा। मेरे द्वारा उठाए गए क्लाइमेट जस्टिस, क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस और ग्रीन क्रेडिट जैसे विषयों को आपने निरंतर समर्थन दिया है। हम सभी के प्रयासों से ये विश्वास बढ़ा है कि विश्व कल्याण के लिए सबके हितों की सुरक्षा आवश्यक है, सबकी भागीदारी आवश्यक है। फ्रेंड्स, आज भारत ने इकोलॉजी और इकोनॉमी के उत्तम संतुलन का उदाहरण विश्व के सामने रखा है। भारत में विश्व की 17% आबादी होने के बावजूद ग्लोबल कार्बन एमिशंस में हमारी हिस्सेदारी ओनली 4% से भी कम है। भारत विश्व की उन कुछ इकोनॉमीज में से एक है जो एनडीसी टारगेट्स को पूरा करने की राह पर है। एमिशंस इंटेंसिटी संबंधी टारगेट्स को हमने 11 साल पहले ही हासिल कर लिया है। नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल टारगेट्स को हम निर्धारित समय से 9 साल पहले ही प्राप्त कर चुके हैं और भारत ने इतने पर ही नहीं रुके हैं। हमारा लक्ष्य 2030 तक एमिशंस इंटेंसिफाई को 45% घटाना है। हमने तय किया है कि नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल का शेयर हम बढ़ाकर 50% करेंगे और हम 2070 तक नेट जीरो के लक्ष्य की तरफ भी बढ़ते रहेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, भारत ने अपनी G20 प्रेसिडेंसी में वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर की भावना के साथ क्लाइमेट के विषय को निरंतर महत्व दिया है। सस्टेनेबल फ्यूचर के लिए हमने मिलकर ग्रीन डेवलपमेंट पैक्ट पर सहमति बनाई। हमने लाइफस्टाइल फॉर सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के सिद्धांत तय किए। हमने वैश्विक स्तर पर रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी को 3 गुना करने की प्रतिबद्धता जताई। भारत ने ऑल्टरनेट फ्यूल्स के लिए हाइड्रोजन के क्षेत्र को बढ़ावा दिया और ग्लोबल बायोफ्यूल्स अलायंस भी लॉन्च किया। हम मिलकर इस नतीजे पर पहुंचे कि क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस कमिटमेंट को बिलियन से बढ़ाकर कई ट्रिलियन तक ले जाने की आवश्यकता है। साथियों, ग्लासगो में भारत ने आइलैंड स्टेट्स के लिए इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर रेजिलिएंट इनिशिएटिव की शुरुआत की थी। भारत 13 देशों में इससे जुड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स तेजी से आगे बढ़ा रहा है। ग्लासगो में ही मैंने मिशन लाइफ स्टाइल फॉर एनवायरनमेंट का विजन आपके सामने रखा था। इंटरनेशनल एनर्जी एजेंसी की स्टडी कहती है कि इस अप्रोच से हम 2030 तक प्रति वर्ष 2 बिलियन टन कार्बन एमिशन कम कर सकते हैं। आज मैं इस फोरम से एक और प्रो प्लैनेट, प्रोएक्टिव और पॉजिटिव इनिशिएटिव का आह्वान कर रहा हूं। यह है ग्रीन क्रेडिट इनिशिएटिव। यह कार्बन क्रेडिट की कॉमर्शियल मानसिकता से आगे बढ़कर जन भागीदारी से कार्बन सिंक बनाने का अभियान है। मैं उम्मीद करता हूं कि आप सब इससे जरूर जुड़ेंगे। साथियों, पिछली शताब्दी की गलतियों को सुधारने के लिए हमारे पास बहुत ज्यादा समय नहीं है। मानव जाति के एक छोटे हिस्से ने प्रकृति का अंधाधुंध दोहन किया, लेकिन इसकी कीमत पूरी मानवता को चुकानी पड़ रही है। विशेषकर ग्लोबल साउथ के निवासियों को। सिर्फ मेरा भला हो, ये सोच दुनिया को एक अंधेरे की तरफ ले जाएगी। इस हॉल में बैठा प्रत्येक व्यक्ति, प्रत्येक राष्ट्राध्यक्ष बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी के साथ यहां आया है। हम में से सभी को अपने दायित्व निभाने ही होंगे। पूरी दुनिया आज हमें देख रही है। इस धरती का भविष्य हमें देख रहा है। हमें सफल होना ही होगा। वी हैव टू बी डिसिसिव। हमें संकल्प लेना होगा कि हर देश अपने लिए जो क्लाइमेट टारगेट तय कर रहा है, जो कमिटमेंट कर रहा है, वो पूरा कर ही दिखाएगा। वी हैव टू वर्क इन यूनिटी। हमें संकल्प लेना होगा कि हम मिलकर काम करेंगे, एक दूसरे का सहयोग करेंगे, साथ देंगे। हमें ग्लोबल कार्बन बजट में सभी विकासशील देशों को उचित शेयर देना होगा। वी हैव टू बी मोर बैलेंस। हमें ये संकल्प लेना होगा कि एडॉप्शन, मिटिगेशन, क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस, टेक्नोलॉजी, लॉस एंड डैमेज, इन सब पर संतुलन बनाते हुए आगे बढ़ें। वी हैव टू बी एम्बिशियस। हमें संकल्प लेना होगा कि एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन जस्ट हो, इंक्लूसिव हो, इक्विटेबल हो। वी हैव टू बी इनोवेटिव। हमें ये संकल्प लेना होगा कि इनोवेटिव टेक्नोलॉजी का लगातार विकास करें। अपने स्वार्थ से ऊपर उठकर दूसरे देशों को टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर करें। क्लीन एनर्जी सप्लाई चेन को सशक्त करें। फ्रेंड, भारत यूएन फ्रेमवर्क फॉर क्लाइमेट चेंज प्रोसेस के प्रति प्रतिबद्ध है। इसलिए आज मैं इस मंच से 2028 में COP33 2028 में COP33 समिट को भारत में होस्ट करने का प्रस्ताव भी रखता हूं। मुझे आशा है कि आने वाले 12 दिनों में ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक की समीक्षा से हमें सुरक्षित और उज्जवल भविष्य का रास्ता मिलेगा। कल लॉस एंड डैमेज फंड को ऑपरेशनलाइज करने का जो निर्णय लिया गया है, उससे हम सभी की उम्मीद और बड़ी है। मुझे विश्वास है यूएई की मेजबानी में ये COP28 समिट सफलता की नई ऊंचाई पर पहुंचेगी। मैं मेरे ब्रदर हिज हाइनेस शेख मोहम्मद बिन जायद और संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ के सेक्रेटरी जनरल हिज एक्सेलेंसी गुटेरेस को मुझे ये विशेष सम्मान देने के लिए विशेष रूप से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my distinct pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Denis Francis, President of the United Nations General Assembly, to address the plenary. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Royal Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Your Highness, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, COP28 President, esteemed heads of state and government, Mr. Simon Steele, UNFCCC Executive Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Let me begin by expressing my sincere congratulations to the COP presidency and the government of the United Arab Emirates for the excellent arrangements put in place for the hosting of the UN Climate Conference this year. I am truly grateful for your kind invitation and for the quality of the reception extended to me and my team in the office of President of the UN General Assembly since our arrival. While our world is fraught with global challenges, perhaps none looms as large or as consequential as the climate crisis. The Paris Agreement remains the best answer to the myriad effects of the climate crisis. Living up to the letter and spirit of the Paris Promise is the ultimate goal of our deliberations, a goal close to my heart, quite literally so, as I wear and have worn, even predating my assumption of the presidency, a lapel pin advocating the goal of 1.5 degrees. A few weeks ago, it was my privilege to pay a visit to the Cook Islands. There, at the Pacific Island Forum leaders with whom I spoke, they spoke agonizingly of the real existential threats posed by sea level rise, itself a direct impact of climate change, but also an indisputable result of our actions, or perhaps more aptly, our inaction. As a citizen of a small island developing state myself, I am acutely aware that on our current trajectory, those islands and the wealth of culture and history they represent are at peril of imminent disappearance through inundation by the seas. The scenario presented by the UNEP emissions gap report of a 3-degree world is not science fiction. It is the path we are on. We must change this trajectory. For far too long, leaders across the spectrum have stood at podiums such as this and made grand commitments that capture public opinion, only to be found, upon subsequent examination, to be either short or totally lacking in implementation. We are long past the time for climate diplomacy through public relations. Action, progressive, transformative action, is needed now to stabilize atmospheric temperatures and to ensure sustainability of the planet and of human civilization. It is time for a once-in-a-generation change. Pervasive evidence indicates that we have, at least academically, rethought the way we live, the way we produce, and the way we consume on this planet. Curiously, what we have not done is to actually reshape and re-engineer our production systems, our lifestyles and habits to match the dictates of climate and planetary sustainability. Borrowing from the Secretary General's descriptor about global boiling, the extant situation demands a new, more sustainable, more resilient, more equitable industrial revolution. We need a just transition to sustainable energy systems. We need to retrofit for resilience and sustainability. I am convinced that we have both the capacity and the tools at our fingertips to do this, while leaving no one behind. Excellencies, the energy transition, coupled with robust mitigation action, is understandably front and center in this effort if we are to halt climate change in its tracks. While the world is moving to renewable sources somewhat faster than anyone might have imagined, significantly more than our feeble efforts are required at scale to produce the desired critical reduction in the levels of emissions. Let us therefore triple renewable energy capacity, as the Cop28 presidency has challenged us to do. And then let us triple it again. Of course, our high levels of energy dependency impact everything we do, from transport to infrastructure to tourism. And for this reason, I intend to do my part in carrying forward these important sector-specific conversations at the General Assembly of the United Nations. Mindful of this imperative, I am pleased to announce that I will convene the first ever General Assembly Sustainability Week at UN headquarters in New York in April 2024, as a flagship initiative of my presidency. This week will consolidate several high-level, already mandated events promoting sustainability in transport, tourism, and infrastructure sectors. Perhaps most importantly, it will incorporate the global stocktake on energy, which aims to complement the stocktake here at Cop28. The results of Sustainability Week will, I hope, add further momentum to the path laid out at Cop28 and ahead of the 2024 Summit of the Future next September. I look forward to welcoming delegations at the highest possible level to New York in April in pursuance of sustainability. Excellencies, while we work towards fast-track energy transition, we must reconcile the reality that climate impacts are here already and will only intensify as we continue the march towards the 1.5 degrees. It is absolutely essential, therefore, that we deliver meaningful progress in specific relation to adaptation. Clearly, we need to shore up financing for adaptation. More accessible, more available, and more affordable financing from the international financial institutions must be unlocked. On this point, there is hope, and I welcome the capitalization of the Fund for Loss and Damage. Developing countries deserve no less. I make the plea, let us continue to build on this success. Let this be just the beginning. From building seawalls to designing drought-resistant crops, developing countries must receive the necessary financial and technical support for climate adaptation. And I applaud the efforts of partners to make community grants and financing more available and quickly accessible, as such funding is particularly important for small island developing states and marginalized communities on the front lines of climate change, as well as for vulnerable groups, especially women and girls. Such resources can help facilitate global and local early warning systems, as well as data and information services to better address extreme climate events. We need to not only be risk-informed, but also resilient at every level and across all stakeholders, thus leaving no one behind. Esteemed heads of state and government, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am not just optimistic. I am convinced that we can emerge from Dubai with a triumvirate of undertakings, a threefold surge in renewable energy, a financial influx to propel sustainability, and a fortified support system for those confronting climate-induced vulnerabilities. Our collective resolve must echo louder than the challenges we face. Together we can make COP28 a decisive win for our people, for our communities, and for our planet. The actions we take here will resonate for generations, proving that when nations and people unite in a common quest for peace, progress, prosperity, and sustainability for all, we can surmount any obstacle and create the future we want. Let's get it done. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, this brings us to the end of the ceremonial opening of the high-level segment. Allow me to please ask you all to remain in your seats to allow our guests to leave the podium before we begin the delivery of national statements. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, honorable guests, I now declare open joint second meeting of Cop28, CMP18 and CMA5. Today, heads of state and government will deliver their respective national statement. I'd like to inform you, Your Excellencies, of actions in place to ensure effective time management. There is a 3-minute time limit for statements during the high-level segment. Statements should be as concise as possible, noting the full texts of the official statements will be made available on the UNFCCC website. And finally, please note that heads of state or government who are not in the plenary at the time for delivery of their statements will be scheduled to speak at the end of all statements of the same category. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, honorable guests, the United Arab Emirates is delighted to welcome over 170 heads of states and government. Your presence here today is a testament to the milestone nature of this COP, to raise our shared ambition over this critical decade to keep 1.5 within reach. Success is underpinned by your commitment to take meaningful and tangible steps to address the climate crisis by implementing and achieving the long-term goals of the Paris Agreement and the ultimate objective of the Convention. It is essential that we expedite efforts towards implementing climate action. With political will and commitment, we can and must deliver an outcome in the United Arab Emirates that will allow for all of us to be proud of. Allow me now to ask everyone to get ready for us to begin. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President of Egypt. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أخي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة الشقيقة، السادة رؤساء الدول والحكومات، أصحاب المعالي الوزراء، السيدات والسادة، يسعدني أن أستهل كلمتي بتهنئة دولة الإمارات الشقيقة على توليها رئاسة مؤتمر الأطراف 28 لاتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية لتغير المناخ Cop28، مشيدا بحسن التنظيم ومؤكدا ثقتي الكاملة في قدرة دولة الإمارات على الإسهام الفاعل في تحقيق أهداف هذه الدورة. إن مؤتمرنا اليوم ينعقد وعلى غرار مؤتمر شرم الشيخ العام الماضي وسط تحديات سياسية ودولية خطيرة لا تقل أهمية عن تداعيات التغيرات المناخية، وهو ما يتطلب منا كقيادات سياسية مسؤولة أمام شعوبها العمل المخلص على خروج مؤتمرنا هذا بنتائج طموحة وتنفيذ متسارع للتعهدات السابقة. وتدرك مصر في ضوء رئاستها للمؤتمر الماضي بشرم الشيخ وتأثرها المباشر بالتغيرات المناخية ضرورة تعزيز العمل الجماعي والعاجل للتعامل مع تحدي تغير المناخ بما يعزز قدرتنا على ضمان التنمية المتوافقة مع البيئة التي تحفظ كوكب الأرض للأجيال المستقبلية، وتتعامل مع ما تشهده الأجيال الحالية من آثار مناخية شديدة وكوارث تتجاوز قدرة الدول خاصة النامية منها على التكيف معها أو احتواء آثارها على مختلف قطاعات التنمية. السادة الحضور، إن مسؤولياتنا كقادة المجتمعين اليوم هي تأكيد الرسالة الواضحة بأننا ملتزمون بل وطموحون في إجراءاتنا وفي تنفيذها بما يتفق مع ما توافقنا عليه في باريس، سواء ما يتعلق بالتجاوب مع التوصيات العلمية أو الالتزام بالمسؤوليات والتعهدات وفقا لقدرات كل دولة وحجم مسؤولياتها التاريخية والحالية عن التحديات المناخية الجارية. لذا فمن المهم تأكيد مبادئ الإنصاف والانتقال العادل والمسؤوليات المشتركة متباينة الأعباء باعتبارها مبادئ أساسية في الإطار متعدد الأطراف. ولقد حرصنا في شرم الشيخ على إطلاق العديد من المسارات التي تسهم في تحقيق تطلعاتنا في هذا الصدد، وعلى رأسها إنشاء صندوق تمويل الدول النامية لمواجهة الخسائر والأضرار المناخية، وبرنامج العمل حول الانتقال العادل، وبرنامج عمل لخفض الانبعاثات. كما مهدنا الطريق أمام التوصل إلى هدف عالمي للتكيف مع التغيرات المناخية. في هذا الإطار اسمحوا لي أن أعرب عن تقديري لكم جميعا في ضوء ما شاهدناه خلال هذا العام من نتائج، سواء ما يتعلق بالنقاشات حول الانتقال العادل أو تفعيل برنامج عمل خفض الانبعاثات في قطاعي الطاقة والنقل، فضلا عن التوصل إلى توصيات لتفعيل ترتيبات تمويل الدول النامية في مواجهة الخسائر والأضرار المناخية وتفعيل صندوق التمويل ذي الصلة. إلا أن نجاح هذه الجهود يرتكن إلى توافر التمويل المناسب سواء من حيث أدواته وآلياته أو مصادره وحجمه وتيسير النفاذ إليه، ويقودنا هذا إلى ضرورة صياغة رؤية مشتركة تتضمن توصيات متفقا عليها حول تطوير كافة عناصر المنظومة من مؤسسات وسياسات تمويل أو مؤسسات تقييم أو قطاع خاص. السيدات والسادة، إننا نؤمن بأن تحقيق هذه الأهداف هو أمر ممكن إذا عملنا معا بروح التعاون والمشاركة، ولذلك ندعو المجتمع الدولي إلى اتخاذ خطوات أكثر طموحا في مؤتمر دبي، إضافة إلى توسيع نطاق المشاركة المجتمعية مع تفادي الأفعال الأحادية التي لا تراعي سوى المصالح الضيقة. وأنني أتطلع لأن نخرج من مؤتمرنا هذا بإطار دولي معزز لتطوير التعاون وتوجيه الدعم المالي والتقني المطلوب للدول النامية. وفي الختام أجدد تأكيد التزام مصر بمواجهة تحدي تغير المناخ، ووجه نداء عالميا لجميع الأطراف بتقديم الدعم الكامل والمخلص لدولة الإمارات الشقيقة لضمان خروج مؤتمر دبي بنتائج تاريخية تؤكد لجميع شعوب العالم إننا عازمون بل وقادرون بإذن الله على إنقاذ وحماية كوكب الأرض، موطن حياتنا ومستقبل أبنائنا وأحفادنا جيلا بعد جيل. شكرا جزيلا لحسن انتباهكم. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Majesty King Abdullah ibn Hussein, King of Jordan. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أخي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان، Mr. Secretary General, Mr. President, أتوجه في البداية بالشكر والتقدير لأخي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد ودولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة الشقيقة على حسن التنظيم لهذه القمة الدولية. My friends, this year's conference of the parties must recognize, even more than ever, that we cannot talk about climate change, in isolation from the humanitarian tragedies unfolding around us. As we speak, the Palestinian people are facing an immediate threat to their lives and well-being. In Gaza, over 1.7 million Palestinians have been displaced from their homes. Tens of thousands have been injured or killed in a region already on the front lines of climate change. The massive destruction of war makes the environmental threats of water scarcity and food insecurity even more severe. In Gaza, where people are living with little clean water and the bare minimum of food supplies, climate threats magnify the devastation of war. So, my friends, as we meet here today to talk about inclusivity in climate response, let's be inclusive of the most vulnerable. Palestinians severely impacted by the war on Gaza, populations around the world affected by conflict and poverty, and refugee families and host communities in our region and beyond. To address the real dangers of food insecurity in Gaza, Jordan has brought together all international partners to coordinate on mechanisms for the sustainable provision of food supplies to the Strip. And as a country where refugees make up over a third of our population, we launched the Climate Refugee Nexus last year. This global initiative prioritizes climate-related support and investments for refugee-hosting nations. We are truly grateful for the 58 countries that have supported this initiative so far. But much more needs to be done. My friends, Jordan contributes a slim 0.06% to global greenhouse gases. Yet we are greatly impacted by global climate change, which has caused threats to our scarce water resources, food sources, and ecodiversity. Today, Jordan's most ambitious and vital projects relate to water. A major national water project envisions desalinating Red Sea water from the Gulf of Aqaba and channeling it to major population areas. The National Water Conveyance Project will rely on renewable energy, a field where we have made significant strides. Our national energy strategy aims to generate 31% of electricity from renewables by 2030. Hybrid and electric vehicles represent 18% of our transport system. In other climate action, research at the Aqaba Marine Park will explore the unique resilience of the Red Sea's coral reefs to benefit the conservation and regeneration of coral reefs around the world. And I look forward to attending an event tomorrow on board the Ocean Explorer vessel to highlight this initiative. Nationally, with a strong talent pool of young entrepreneurs and qualified engineers, we are pressing forward with solutions in climate-smart agriculture, water conservation, clean energy innovations, and more. And some of our innovators are showcasing their work here at Cop28. Jordan also launched its Green Finance strategy, the first in the region, and we issued our first green bond earlier this year. So, my friends, despite the challenges, Jordan has set an example in the region as a climate action pioneer and is emerging as a green tech hub. Yet just as the impact of climate change does not take place in a vacuum, no country's response succeeds alone. The global stocktake has shown us that our world is still far behind in achieving the goals set by the Paris Agreement. As we work to catch up on the lost time and progress, we cannot forget the most vulnerable. Conflict-ridden communities, refugees, and developing countries must not be left alone to face a global problem. Nor can we stand by as the massive destruction of a relentless war in Gaza threatens more people and holds back progress towards a better global future. Current and future generations will hold us all accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Majesty King Tupu VI, King of Tonga. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to add my congratulations to the government and people of the United Arab Emirates for hosting COP28. Congratulations for a brilliant celebration to kick off the conference, coinciding with the UAE National Day at the human-centric city of the future. The warm welcome and gracious hospitality extended to us has been splendid. Mr. President, it's painful for the people of the small island developing states to see that COP28 may not be the milestone moment we had all been hoping for because of our slow progress on the Paris Agreement. The far-reaching impacts of climate change and disasters on human security and mobility displaces more than 50,000 Pacific people every year. At the 52nd Pacific Islands Forum last month, leaders endorsed the Pacific Partnership for Prosperity as a political prioritization process to mobilize resources to empower Pacific people to bring about transformational change through national and regional development. We need a Pacific-led, member-owned and managed community resilience financing facility. We recognize Australia and New Zealand's commitments, and I therefore strongly urge all partners to contribute to funding the establishment of a Pacific Resilience Facility. We are ocean people. The ocean is our lifeblood. It feeds us. It is our mode of transportation and part of our deep-seated culture, making COP28 and the themes outlined by UAE right in line with major gaps and challenges that Tonga and small island development states are experiencing in the areas of technology, innovation, inclusion, frontline communities, and finance. The 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent sees Pacific Island countries embarking on a blue technological revolution with innovation at the center, seeking to develop and deploy SIDS-appropriate technologies and looking at ways to improve climate resilience of the majority of the Tongan population. Tonga and Palau are champions of unlocking the Blue Pacific Prosperity Plan, which articulates the goals of 100% effective ocean management for the region and 30% protection of the Blue Pacific continent, aligned to Pacific country contexts, priorities and capacities. Robust food systems underpinned by resilient ecosystems, resulting in healthy and productive Pacific people, and fit-for-purpose, sustainable financing mechanisms that support the implementation of the 2050 strategy. The ambitious agenda before us focuses on 4 paradigm shifts to guide our work under negotiating mandates and the Presidency's action agenda. But I believe that we can make major progress by placing one of those important shifts at the forefront of our debate, Mr. President. Let us put nature, people, lives, and livelihoods at the heart of climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is my pleasure to welcome His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassanullah Bilqay, Sultan of Brunei. Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency, President of Cop28, Honorable Heads of States and Government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express my sincere appreciation to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, the government and the people of the UAE for hosting this summit. Excellency, climate change has emerged as our generation's most urgent challenge, threatening our existence. Unfortunately, initial results from the first global stocktake have revealed that we are not on track to limit global temperature rise not beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius and to prevent a global disaster. This underscores the need for a renewed sense of urgency to fulfill our Paris Agreement obligation. It also demands that developed countries honor past commitments and provide adequate resources and affordable technology to combat the impact of climate change. Despite accounting for a mere 0.017% of global emissions, Brunei Darussalam takes serious heed to this call for action. We are committed to balancing national development and environmental protection while pursuing sustainable growth for our economy. We have also maintained over half of our land area in pristine natural rainforests, with our mangrove ranks third largest in Borneo. In addition, we aim to plant 500,000 permanent trees by 2035, expanding our carbon sink further. Through our climate change policy, we are actively diversifying our energy mix by emphasizing our renewable. Collaborating with all stakeholders, including youth and the private sector, we are on track to achieve a 20% reduction in emission by 2030, as outlined in our NDC, paving the way to achieving net zero by 2050. 2 years ago, Brunei Darussalam took the lead in elevating a climate action at the regional level. This is why we will be hosting the ASEAN Center for Climate Change. It will facilitate enhanced climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts across Southeast Asia through research, analysis, data exchange, and policy recommendations. Therefore, we welcome support and cooperation from all interested member states and international organizations to make this center meaningfully contribute regionally and to our global efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. William Ruto, the President of Kenya. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, the COP President, Your Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, fellow leaders, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, UN Secretary General, fellow leaders, as we convene here in Dubai, we must appreciate that the presence of almost 200 nations speaks volumes about the magnitude of this global event and what it stands for. This gathering is a testament to the universal recognition that among the multitude of global challenges confronting us today, climate change stands out as by far the defining issue of our era. Cop28 underscores our shared commitment to confront with unwavering resolve a challenge that transcends borders, impacts every facet of human existence and well-being, and demands a concerted global response as a matter of grave urgency. The reality before us is irrefutable. According to the latest UN data, unless there is a significant and radical shift in our economic and industrial patterns, we are hurtling at a perilous velocity on a trajectory towards the dire scenario of a world that is warmer by 3 degrees Celsius. The evidence is alarming. In just the first 10 months of this year, we experienced 86 days where temperatures soared over 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. Adding to this worrying scenario is the fact that global greenhouse gas emissions have not decreased, but rather increased by a deeply worrying 1.2% between 2021 and 2022, culminating in a staggering 57.4 gigatons of CO2 equivalent, a record high that underscores the magnitude of the climate crisis we face. We must add that all the increases were experienced in the G20 countries, and many of them are here and they are listening. This crisis must never be seen as a distant threat. It is here now, indiscriminately devastating nations regardless of their size or wealth, thereby reshaping our world in a profound, unprecedented, and highly complicated ways. A stark illustration of this disastrous turn of events is currently unfolding in Eastern Africa, where catastrophic flooding has swiftly followed the most severe drought the region has seen in over 40 years. Scientific evidence clearly and strongly links these extreme weather events to human-induced climate change. Studies indicate that droughts are now at least 100 times more likely in parts of Africa than they were in pre-industrial era. This translates into a dramatic reduction in long-term rainfall, while short-term rainfall patterns remain erratic and unpredictable. All of us are already living in this dire reality. Kenya has been besieged by relentless torrents that have claimed lives and displaced countless communities. The ensuing injury, loss and damage extends beyond immense human toll to the destruction of vital infrastructure and the disruption of critical supply chains across many vital sectors. Beyond mere logistical challenges, the devastation further complicates the daily struggle for survival for many households and communities. The situation in our Horn of Africa region, in many other developing countries, lay bare the harsh reality of climate change. It is a poignant reminder of its disproportionate impact and a call to action for all of us to mobilize rapidly to address this imbalance with urgency, solidarity, and inclusivity. We are also here because we are convinced of our collective ability to effect change. Our mission for this COP is clear: to foster radical cooperation that steers the world firmly back onto a 1.5 degrees Celsius ceiling. Equally critical, we are here to affirm our commitment to provide robust support to those of us who have contributed least to climate change, yet bear its most catastrophic impacts. As Africa, we are ready to play our part in full. The Nairobi Declaration, which we adopted at the conclusion of the first Africa Climate Summit, set out the vision and pathway for Africa to be a vital part of the global solution to the existential climate challenge we face. The declaration captures the consensus of the African government leaders for climate-positive growth that harnesses our ample human natural resources. It commits us to triple renewable energy capacity, establish green manufacturing, halt and reverse deforestation, promote sustainable agriculture, promote nature-based solutions, support the global call to phase down coal plants and eliminate inefficient fossil fuel production subsidies, and further amplify calls for a new global financial architecture and global carbon tax. In Kenya, we have transformed this vision into tangible goals. Our plan is ambitious to expand our current energy capacity of approximately 3 gigawatts to 100 gigawatts of entirely renewable power by 2050 as a cornerstone of our green industrialization strategy. This level of ambition must be matched by the global commitment to achieve concrete, action-oriented outcomes. The first global stocktake at this COP is not just a checkpoint. It is a crucial step forward in our collective response to climate change. It must therefore encompass strategies for mitigation, adaptation, addressing loss and damage, and fundamentally, the means of its implementation. Such a comprehensive approach will pave the way for a more inclusive and robust set of nationally determined contributions in the next cycle. At the heart of our discussion at this COP28 must be a package of ambitious energy transition and investment goals and incentives aligned with our commitment to maintain a global temperatures within 1.5 degree limit. This entails a pledge to triple renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030, alongside a significant reduction in fossil fuel dependency. I commend my brother, the COP presidency, for their efforts to converge the world around this global call. The strong participation of traditional hydrocarbon energy leaders in this global endeavor has transformed the conversation and brought us closer to consensus based on democratic inclusion and the best spirit of collective action, as well as multilateralism. Notably, the vision demands deliberate support for developing countries. In the past 2 decades, only 2% of the $3 trillion invested globally in renewable energy has reached Africa, despite the continent's vast resource endowments and great need for investment. The consequences of this investment gap are starkly evident. More than 600 million Africans are deprived of basic energy services, which are fundamental to dignified living and access to essential services such as healthcare and education. The challenge is compounded by the fact that nearly 1 billion people in Africa do not have access to clean cooking amenities. A tendency to ignore Africa's developmental and industrialization needs and the failure to invest in our burgeoning young generation is no longer a tenable proposition. We cannot afford to neglect the immense potential or ignore the pressing needs of a continent on the cusp of transformative growth. Turning Africa into a green powerhouse is not just essential for the continent, it is also vital for global industrialization decarbonization. Going forward, clear, actionable roadmaps for implementations are required. In turn, this calls for a unified global effort to mobilize the necessary capital for both development and climate action. To echo the consensus projected at the Paris Summit, we must establish a new global financing pact which ensures that no country is ever forced to choose between its development aspirations and necessary climate action. Fundamentally, this is a call for an integrated approach where economic growth and developmental sustainability are not mutually exclusive but are pursued in tandem for the greater global good. Finally, the urgency and magnitude of our task calls for far greater transformation than the incremental progress we have seen over the past 30 years. We need to execute quantum leaps in terms of both our strategic actions and technological innovation. What lies at stake is more than just a climate issue. It is a matter of guaranteeing dignified living and livelihoods for billions who lack basic necessities. Our response must match the scale of this global challenge with boldness and innovation. Given this context, the long-standing adversarial dynamic between global North and global South proves practically counterproductive. This division has hindered our ability to unite and leverage our collective strengths and robbed us of tremendous opportunities. Yet, in the face of a threat that endangers the health of our planet and our very existence, we must find in collective action a force that neutralizes and transcends these divisions. Climate change does not respect artificial distinctions, traditional boundaries, or old antagonisms. Instead, it should unite us against a shared, borderless challenge. Consequently, our approach must be collaborative, inclusive, and anchored in justice. This means making decisions that prioritize the well-being of every person while acknowledging that climate action is inextricably linked to social justice and equity. In this room, ladies and gentlemen, we have the power, the means, and most of all, the responsibility to act. The world is watching, and what we deliver at Cop28 will be a testament of whether we are capable guardians of this planet and competent stewards of its stability. Cop28 and the global stocktake are elements of a strong and clear call to conscience on behalf of the global community. Let us not be satisfied with another minimal increment, but rather let us make this COP a turning point towards a just, equal world of opportunity, safe from the looming threat of a climate disaster. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Shavkat Mirziyoyev, President of Uzbekistan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Hurmatli delegatsiya rahbarlari, bugungi tarixiy sammitga taklif etilganimiz hamda anjumanning yuqori darajada tashkil qilingani uchun Birlashgan Arab Amirligi prezidenti Muhammad bin Zoid Al Nahyan Alloh hazratlariga bildirilgan samimiy minnatdorchilik so'zlariga qo'shilaman. Biz amirlikning iqlim o'zgarishiga qarshi kurashda global tashabbuslari va yashil taraqqiyotga qo'shayotgan katta hissasini olqishlaymiz. Fursatdan foydalanib Birlashgan Arab Amirliklari xalqining milliy bayrami bilan chin dildan qutlayman. Hurmatli sammit ishtirokchilari, iqlim muammolari barqaror rivojlanish yo'lida eng asosiy tahdidga aylanib ulgurdi. Bu xavf-xatarlar hatto dunyo geosiyosiy arxitekturasiga ham ta'sir ko'rsatmoqda. Iqlim o'zgarishining salbiy oqibatlari Orol fojiasi tufayli Markaziy Osiyoda ayniqsa jiddiy sezilmoqda. Mintaqamizda havo haroratining oshishi jahondagi o'rtacha ko'rsatishdan 2 barobar ko'pdir. Favqulodda issiq kunlar soni 2 marta ortdi. Muzliklar maydonining 3dan 1 qismi yo'qoldi. Tuproq yemirilishi jarayonlari 30 million aholi turmush tarziga salbiy ta'sir ko'rsatmoqda. Kuchli chang va qum bo'ronlari odatiy holga aylandi. Ichimlik suvi taqchilligi, havo ifloslanishi, bioxilma-xillik yo'qolishi, qishloq xo'jaligi hosildorligi pasayishi kabi muammolar tobora avj olmoqda. Bu global xavflar keng mintaqamizda xatarli nuqtaga yetib kelmoqda. Hurmatli anjuman qatnashchilari, yashil iqtisodiyotga o'tish va uglerod neytralligiga erishish yangi O'zbekistonning ustuvor strategik vazifasidir. So'nggi yillarda yurtimizda muqobil energiya ulushi 2 barobarga ko'paydi. Biz 2030-yilga borib 25 gigavat qayta tiklanuvchi energiya quvvatlarini barpo etamiz. Yashil vodorod ishlab chiqarish bo'yicha ilk amaliy qadamlarni tashladik. Yashil makon tashabbusi doirasida mamlakatimizda 1 milliard tub ko'chat ekilmoqda. Orol dengizining qurigan tubida 2 million gektar maydonda o'rmonlar barpo etdik. Biz iqlim o'zgarishiga qarshi faqat birdamlik va keng xalqaro hamkorlik orqali samarali kurashishimiz mumkin. Bu borada quyidagi takliflarni ilgari surmoqchiman. Birinchidan, Parij shartnomasi doirasida iqlim o'zgarishiga moslashish sohasida global xatli mexanizmni tezroq kelishishi tarafdorimiz. Biz Markaziy Osiyo iqlim muloqoti platformasida adaptatsiya strategiyasini ishlab chiqmoqdamiz. Kecha yo'qotish va zararlar jamg'armasini tashkil etish bo'yicha qabul qilingan muhim qarorni yuksak baholaymiz. Ikkinchidan, global miqyosda kam uglerodli iqtisodiyotga o'tish adolatli, shaffof va inklyuziv bo'lishi shart. Bunda rivojlanayotgan davlatlarning manfaatlari albatta inobatga olinishi juda muhim. Bu muammo katta 7lik va 20lik formatlarida doimiy ko'rib chiqilishi maqsadga muvofiqdir. Uchinchidan, biz Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkilotining rezolyutsiyasi asosida Orolbo'yi hududining ekologik ofat zonasidan innovatsiyalar, texnologiyalar va yangi imkoniyatlar mintaqasiga aylantirmoqchimiz. Bu yerda iqlim texnologiyalari xalqaro ekspo hubini yaratishda yaqin hamkorlikni taklif etamiz. To'rtinchidan, iqlim o'zgarishiga qarshi kurashda ilm-fan yutuqlaridan keng foydalanishimiz lozim. Toshkentdagi Yashil universitet negizida iqlim ilmiy forumida davlatlaringiz yetakchi olim va ekspertlarni ishtirok etishiga chaqiraman. Yer degradatsiyasi, suvdan foydalanish, oziq-ovqat xavfsizligi muammolari forum kun tartibidan joy oladi deb ishonaman. 5-dan, Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkiloti bilan 2024-yilda O'zbekistonda iqlim migratsiyasi konferensiyasini o'tkazish niyatdamiz. Xalqaro mehnat tashkiloti bilan yashil bandlik dasturini ishlab chiqish va modellashtirish markazini tashkil etish taklif qilaman. Ko'p yoshlar konferensiyasini mamlakatimizda yuqori darajada tashkil etishga tayyormiz. Hurmatli do'stlar, O'zbekiston iqlim o'zgarishiga qarshi kurash bo'yicha umumbashariy g'oyalarga doimo sodiqdir. Bu ezgu maqsadda kelgusi yili Samarqand xalqaro iqlim forumini o'tkazish va Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkilotining alohida rezolyutsiyasini qabul qilish tashabbusini qo'llab-quvvatlashga chaqiraman. Ishonchim komil, bugungi sammitimiz sayyoramizning yanada barqaror, farovon va xavfsiz kelajagini ta'minlash yo'lida do'st xalqlarimizni yaqinlantirishga xizmat qiladi. E'tiboringiz uchun rahmat.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my honor and distinct pleasure to welcome His Highness Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Vice President and Deputy Prime Minister, Chairman of the Presidential Court of the United Arab Emirates. Your Highness, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نرحب بكم في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، البلد الذي يشكل عالما في دولة عالم يختصر ما في العالم ويطمح ويسعى لعالم يعمه السلام والاستقرار والاستدامة. نجتمع اليوم لنعمل من أجل الغد، ونتعاون اليوم من أجل أجيال المستقبل. يعلمنا التاريخ أن من سبقونا تعاونوا لنصل إلى ما نحن عليه اليوم، لأن نجاح البشرية في وقتها الحاضر ما كان إلا نتيجة للتعاون العلمي والتواصل الثقافي والتبادل المعرفي الذي تطور عبر آلاف السنين بين مختلف الشعوب والدول. باسم شعب دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة نؤكد على أننا جادون في العمل من أجل المناخ، فنحن أول دولة أعلنت الحياد المناخي في المنطقة بحلول 2050، ولدينا استراتيجية ب 163 مليار دولار لتنوع مصادر الطاقة والتحول نحو طاقة نظيفة ومتجددة. وأعلن صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله في كلمته عن تشكيل صندوق بقيمة 30 مليار دولار لتنويع ودعم المشاريع في العمل المناخي. ولدينا فريق عمل حكومي متميز يقود أجندتنا وسياستنا ومشاريعنا في العمل المناخي، ونفخر اليوم بأننا نستضيف العالم في هذه القمة العالمية للعمل المناخي. الحضور الكريم، نكرر ترحيبنا بكم في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، ونكرر التزامنا الجاد في العمل من أجل كوكب الأرض، ونكرر رسالتنا المعلنة والواضحة بأن التواصل والتعاون بين الدول والثقافات والحضارات هو الطريق للتغلب على التحديات المناخية التي تواجه كوكب الأرض. شكرا لكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Highness. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of Brazil. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Senhor Sultan Al-Jaber, presidente da Cop28, excelências, convidados, é uma grande responsabilidade estar aqui em Dubai hoje. Estamos diante do que talvez seja o maior desafio já enfrentado pela humanidade. Em vez de unir forças, o mundo trava guerras, alimenta divisões e aprofunda a pobreza e as desigualdades. O caminho desta COP, a COP30, no Brasil, ditará nosso futuro. Aqui faremos o primeiro balanço global do Acordo de Paris. Na COP29, definiremos um novo objetivo quantificável de financiamento. Em Belém, formularemos nossas novas contribuições nacionalmente determinadas, NDCs. O último relatório do IPCC é categórico sobre o perigo
de um aumento na temperatura global superar a 1,5 grau. A meta do Acordo de Paris é mantê-lo entre 1,5 grau e 2, já é insuficiente para conter o aquecimento global em nível seguro. Temos um problema coletivo de inação, outro de falta de ambição. As NDCs atuais não estão sendo implementadas no ritmo esperado. E mesmo que estivesse, não conseguiriam manter a temperatura abaixo do limite de 1,5 grau. O Brasil ajustou sua NDC e se comprometeu a reduzir 48% das emissões até 2025 e 53% até 2030, além de atingir neutralidade climática até 2050. Nossa NDC é mais ambiciosa do que a de vários países que poluem a atmosfera desde a Revolução Industrial no século XIX. Mantemos o firme compromisso de zerar o desmatamento na Amazônia até 2030. Já conseguimos reduzi-lo em quase 50% nos 10 primeiros meses deste ano, o que evitou a emissão de 250 milhões de toneladas de carbono na atmosfera. Mas muitos países do sul global não terão condições de implementar suas NDCs, nem de assumir metas mais ambiciosas. Os mais vulneráveis não podem ter que escolher entre combater a mudança do clima e combater a pobreza. Terão que fazer ambos. O princípio das responsabilidades comuns, porém diferenciadas, é inegociável. Ameaçá-lo vai na contramão de qualquer noção básica de justiça climática. Essa noção demanda que sejam cumpridas as obrigações de financiamento de transferência de tecnologia. É inaceitável que a promessa dos 100 bilhões de dólares por ano assumida pelos países desenvolvidos não saia do papel, enquanto só em 2021 os gastos militares chegaram a 2 trilhões e 200 bilhões de dólares. No Brasil, a emergência climática já é uma realidade. A Amazônia está atravessando neste momento uma seca inédita. O nível dos rios é o mais baixo em mais de 120 anos. Nunca imaginei que veria isso no lugar onde estão os maiores reservatórios de água doce do mundo. Mas o futuro da Amazônia não depende só dos amazônicos. O desmatamento em todo o mundo só responde por 10% das emissões globais. Mesmo que não derrubemos mais nenhuma árvore, a Amazônia poderá atingir seu ponto de não retorno se outros países não fizerem sua parte. O aumento da temperatura global poderá desencadear um processo irreversível de savanização da Amazônia. O setor de energia, indústria e transporte emite muito gás de efeito estufa. Temos que lidar com todas essas fontes. É por isso que o Brasil está propondo a missão 1.5, uma missão coletiva que vai nos manter na trilha de 1,5 grau. Nos 2 anos, até a Cop30, será necessário redobrar os esforços para implementar as NDCs que assumimos. E em Belém, precisamos anunciar NDCs mais ousadas e garantir os meios de implementação necessária para concretizá-la. Os países em desenvolvimento requerem incentivos positivos para promover medidas de ação climática alinhadas às suas prioridades de seu desenvolvimento. No Brasil, tem a mitologia indígena que diz que o rio Amazonas nasceu das lágrimas da lua. A lua teve de abrir mão de seu amor pelo sol para que a terra não fosse destruída pelo calor. Se não deixarmos nossas diferenças de lado, em nome de um bem maior, a vida no planeta estará em perigo e será tarde demais para chorar. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Charles Michel, President of the European Council, and Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Your Excellencies, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président de la COP28, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, chacun en vos titres et qualités, des inondations qui ravagent, des feux qui détruisent, des populations déracinées et déplacées, plus aucun continent n'échappe à la tragédie du changement climatique. Et pourtant, la science, la connaissance, la raison nous amènent à connaître le diagnostic. Pas seulement le diagnostic, nous connaissons aussi les solutions. Nous devons maintenir l'objectif de 1,5 degré et nous devons nous débarrasser le plus rapidement possible de nos dépendances aux énergies fossiles qui mettent notre avenir commun en danger. Mesdames et Messieurs, ce sommet n'est pas une simple conférence, ce sommet est en réalité un examen, et même un examen de conscience. Faire le bilan mondial depuis les accords de Paris et surtout agir plus et agir plus rapidement. Nous saluons le leadership d'Antonio Guterres, nous saluons aussi la manière dont les Émirats arabes sont engagés pour faire de cette COP28 un succès. Pour sa part, l'Union européenne est totalement mobilisée et engagée. Nous souhaitons continuer à jouer un rôle moteur. La transition climat est notre programme de développement, le Green Deal, Fit for 55. Nous mettons en œuvre des paquets de mesures pour transformer radicalement notre paradigme de développement économique. On a ainsi progressé en baissant de 30% nos émissions depuis 1990. Nous croyons dans la mécanique du prix du carbone pour continuer à avancer sur le bon chemin et encourageons d'autres à nous soutenir. Nous avons la détermination de tripler le renouvelable, de doubler l'efficacité énergétique et puis nous sommes aux côtés des pays en développement. Nous savons notre solidarité, nous savons notre responsabilité, c'est une question de confiance. C'est ainsi que nous honorons nos engagements relatifs aux 100 milliards. 23 milliards d'euros sont mobilisés cette année par l'Union européenne. Nous soutenons nos engagements en termes de partenariat pour des transitions énergétiques justes. Et puis nous sommes mobilisés pour soutenir le fonds pour les pertes et dommages. 220 millions ont été annoncés hier par l'Union européenne en format équipe Union européenne. Nous soutenons aussi la réforme des institutions de Bretton Woods. Nous devons amener plus de justice, plus de confiance, plus d'inclusivité. La Banque mondiale, quand elle a été créée, était 7 fois plus capitalisée qu'elle ne l'est aujourd'hui. L'Union européenne est un partenaire loyal et engagé parce qu'en effet, la Terre ne nous appartient pas. La Terre appartient à nos enfants. Ce n'est pas un slogan publicitaire, c'est une réalité existentielle. La décennie qui s'ouvre est cruciale et nous sommes tout à fait mobilisés à travailler avec chacun d'entre vous pour protéger l'humanité. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mr. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Fellow leaders, last September at the Climate Action Summit in New York, we called for concrete action. Now in Dubai, we have to deliver. At this COP, we will set a decisive step forward to protect the most vulnerable citizens worldwide. They undergo runaway climate change. They suffer loss and damage, and we will stand by their side. This COP is about ambition, it is about targets, and it is about finance. Let me start with ambition. Global emissions must peak by 2025. We must phase out fossil fuels, and we must reduce methane emissions. But what we are calling for globally, we also have to deliver domestically. So let me report on what we do in the European Union. The European Union has peaked already. We have reduced emissions, and we are on track to overshoot our target for 2030. And we just adopted a law to drastically reduce methane emissions. Second, on targets. This COP can make history. Last spring, the European Union launched a call to triple renewables and to double energy efficiency by 2030. We were joined by some early champions like the COP presidency, President Ruto, Prime Minister Motley, and many thanks to the International Energy Agency and IRENA for your strong support. By now, our call has grown into a powerful movement. More than 110 countries have already joined. That's fantastic. So I call now on all of us to include these targets in the final COP decision, because this sends a strong message to investors and consumers alike. There is no doubt the future of energy will be clean, it will be affordable, and it will be homegrown. And finally, on finance, we must meet the 100 billion target this year. Europe consistently delivered. Last year, the European Union contributed close to $30 billion in public climate finance. And of course, the European Union will contribute to the new Loss and Damage Fund. As of today, Team Europe is contributing more than $270 million so far. We must get the fund up and running, and we must do it fast. But we all know more is needed. We need to reform the international financial system. We need a strong green bond market, and we need more carbon pricing. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow leaders, dear friends, I wish for a successful COP28. Many thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency. May I remind the Speaker to maintain 3 minutes speaking time limit. Thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mr. Samia Hululu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, President of Cop28, Your Highnesses and Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in Copenhagen, we committed 100 billion annually for climate action. Though far less than required, it is still not forthcoming. In Paris, we resolved to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. However, the current rate of warming is alarming. It must be said, unfulfilled commitment erode solidarity and trust, and have detrimental and costly consequences for developing countries. My own country is losing 2 to 3% of its GDP due to climate change. Excellencies, the clock is ticking. This year's IPCC report cautioned that adaptation options that are visible and effective today will become constrained and less effective with increasing global warming. Putting in place the global goal on adaptation framework is a matter of urgency and not a choice. We must match our intent with our actions, and we must act now. The decision is therefore ours: adhere to science or face the consequences. On our part, the United Republic of Tanzania, despite of our minimum emission contribution, we are doing our part. At this COP28, we seek to mobilize support for increased use of clean and affordable cooking fuels and technologies across Africa. especially for women. Our call is for all of us to play our part. Excellencies, honoring our commitments and advancing the pace of climate action is a solution to this scourge. As we seek to unite, act and deliver here in Dubai, we must deliver on climate finance. Thanks for effecting the loss and damage fund. So let us now make the fund be accessible for developing countries, predictable, and of course, transparency should be the way of operation. I thank you very much for your...
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Gitanas Nausėda, President of Lithuania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, every year we come together to talk about the need for change. To get the change we so desperately need, we must become the change. For many years now, Lithuania, together with the whole European Union, has been undergoing, an ambitious transformation and working on the global climate action. At first, Lithuania made a strategic decision to seek energy independence. We have built our own LNG terminal, which decreased prices and turned Lithuania into a regional gas hub. Now we are proudly sharing our expertise worldwide. Today, we see renewable energy as the ultimate means of securing full energy independence and resilience, while also helping the planet Earth. By 2030, Lithuania is going to shift from the net importer of electricity to a self-sufficient green energy producer. We plan for renewable electricity generation to grow almost sevenfold. Last year, Lithuania was the second country globally in the solar energy generation increase. My country intends to use excess renewable electricity capacities to produce green hydrogen and to address energy efficiency. The second pillar of the green transformation, through new ambitious plans. Our general aim is to achieve a 70% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 1990 levels and to become climate neutral by 2050. The global response, too, can only be strengthened by methodical adaptation to climate change. We must all seek to be more resilient, to change our habits and to reduce existing vulnerabilities. We also have to address the worst cases of ecocide, such as the one committed by Russia in its war of aggression against Ukraine. These actions are incompatible with international law and go against our joint efforts to stop climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, today Lithuania strongly commends the Presidency for a strong global response to the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. We call on all leaders to approve global 2030 renewables and energy efficiency targets. Let us work together as one team. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, President of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, allow me to express my sincere gratitude to the government people of the United Arab Emirates for successfully hosting this COP28 and for the hospitality extended to me and my delegation since our arrival here. Zimbabwe, like many other nations, continues to suffer from the negative socio-economic impacts of increased frequency of droughts, heightened intensity of tropical cyclones, and other severe weather events. No country can adapt to or mitigate these impacts alone. The ambitious emissions reductions expected from developed countries are urgent and critical to prevent a climate catastrophe. This is critical to ensure that vulnerable communities and workers in traditional industries are not left behind, and that the transition benefits all while also creating decent green jobs and promoting social and economic stability. The global economic system, the ways we produce and consume, and the resource we use to support economic growth must all undergo drastic changes in order to meaningfully implement the goals of the Paris Agreement. Zimbabwe is walking the talk on its revised, nationally determined contributions. We are offering diverse opportunities for carbon trading in the energy sector through investments in solar, wind, mini hydro, and geothermal power generation. However, the illegal economic sanctions imposed on our country are inadvertently hindering climate action by impeding progress in our quest to address environmental challenges. We reiterate our calls for the immediate and unconditional lifting of these heinous sanctions. Aspects related to sustainable methods for increased agriculture production and productivity remain essential to our ability to feed ourselves. We welcome the first global stocktake at this COP28, which should help us to continuously review, improve, and transparently disclose our climate plans. This COP28 is called upon to persist in the mobilization of resources and adopting clear strategies for achieving the promised 100 billion climate finance. Let us all fulfill our responsibilities and use this gathering as another opportunity to carve out a sustainable future for the generations to come. May history remember us as those who took bold and resolute action to preserve our planet. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Umaro Sissoko Embalo, President of Guinea-Bissau. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Senhor Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, presidente de COP28, como muitos países da África Ocidental, a Guiné-Bissau é particularmente vulnerável às alterações climáticas. As nossas comunidades costeiras estão sujeitas à elevação do nível do mar, as nossas safras agrícolas enfrentam condições climáticas cada vez mais imprevisíveis e a nossa biodiversidade está sob constante ameaça e, no entanto, embora vítimas das alterações climáticas, somos também autores ativos na busca de solução. Temos empreendidos ações significativas para a implementação da estratégia de gestão sustentável dos nossos recursos naturais, a promoção de energias limpas e renováveis e a adaptação de infraestruturas críticas para resistir aos impactos climáticos. A conservação da biodiversidade é uma prioridade máxima para nós. O nosso país é abençoado com uma rica diversidade de espécies e ecossistemas únicos e estamos empenhados em protegê-los. Para as gerações futuras, acreditamos que a biodiversidade é intrinsecamente ligada à nossa própria resiliência como nação. Esse desiderato consubstanciada se decreta mais de 26% do nosso território como áreas protegidas, ultrapassando a meta de 11 da XI da Convenção das Nações Unidas sobre a Diversidade Biológica. Minhas senhoras e meus senhores, todas essas problemáticas sustentam de que a crise climática é uma ameaça global que requer uma resposta global. Nenhum país deve ser deixado para trás e é fundamental que as nações desenvolvidas cumpram com as suas obrigações financeiras e de assistência técnica para ajudar os países em desenvolvimento a enfrentar os desafios das alterações climáticas. Falando em recursos financeiros, reiteramos a necessidade de fundos novos e adicionais para apoiar a adaptação e a mitigação das alterações climáticas. Nos países em desenvolvimento, esses recursos são cruciais para garantir que possamos implementar as medidas necessárias para enfrentar essa crise. Quanto à questão das perdas e danos climáticos, pedimos uma boa abordagem mais robusta e equitativa. As comunidades mais vulneráveis não podem ser abandonadas a enfrentar sozinhas as consequências devastadoras dos eventos climáticos extremos e catastróficos naturais. Reforçamos o nosso compromisso com o Acordo de Paris e com a construção de um novo regime climático baseado na justiça e na equidade. No entanto, é importante que façamos um balanço global consequente no nosso progresso até agora. O tempo está se esgotando e a ação decisiva é necessária para evitar as piores consequências das alterações climáticas. É nesse espírito que a Guiné-Bissau está empenhado em trabalhar em cooperação com todos os países presentes nesta conferência. Juntos podemos traçar um caminho e adotar medidas adequadas para um fim futuro mais sustentável, resiliente e justo para todas as nações e para as gerações futuras, com o fito de proteger o nosso planeta. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Denis Sassou Nguesso, President of Congo. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mesdames et Messieurs, les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le Président de la Cop28, Mesdames et Messieurs, je voudrais adresser mes sincères remerciements à Son Altesse Mohamed Ben Zayed Al Nahyan, Président des Émirats arabes unis, pour l'accueil chaleureux et l'hospitalité réservée à ma délégation et à moi-même. Je saisis cette opportunité pour réaffirmer le ferme engagement et la détermination de mon pays, la République du Congo, à participer activement à l'effort mondial de lutte contre les changements climatiques. Vous me permettrez, avant de poursuivre, de rappeler ce qu'à notre niveau et en tant que président de la commission climat du bassin du Congo, nous avons parcouru comme chemin depuis plus d'une décennie. Après l'accord de Paris, le rôle essentiel de nos forêts tropicales du bassin du Congo dans la régulation du climat a été enfin reconnu comme l'un des derniers poumons verts de la planète. Et les enjeux sont connus et les solutions ont été identifiées. Préoccupés par la recherche de ressources durables pour financer la gestion des écosystèmes forestiers et la préservation de sa biodiversité, nous avons initié l'idée de la création du Fonds bleu pour le bassin du Congo, dans le but de concilier la lutte contre les changements climatiques et le développement économique. Persuadés de l'importance des solutions basées sur la nature pour atteindre les objectifs de développement durable, ainsi que ceux de la décennie des Nations unies pour la restauration des écosystèmes, j'ai lancé, lors de la COP27 à Sharm el-Sheikh, l'appel solennel à l'instauration d'une décennie mondiale de l'afforestation afin d'inverser le cours actuel de la destruction de nos forêts. C'est dans ce contexte que, 12 ans après sa première édition, mon pays a abrité en octobre dernier à Brazzaville le deuxième sommet des 3 bassins forestiers tropicaux et de biodiversité, à savoir l'Amazonie, le Bornéo-Mékong, Asie du Sud-Est et le Congo. Mesdames et Messieurs, les défis qui nous attendent sont considérables et ne cessent de croître d'année en année. Certains relèvent de notre propre responsabilité. Il nous revient de redoubler d'ardeur pour préserver ces derniers poumons de la planète et ces trésors de biodiversité que sont nos forêts tropicales. Ainsi, le devoir de solidarité à travers les demandes de compensation financière suite au renoncement volontaire de certains pays à des projets de développement non durable appelle et mérite toute l'attention de la communauté internationale. C'est le juste effort de solidarité et d'équité qui incombe à tous les pays appelés à œuvrer ensemble pour une planète Terre plus sûre, à l'abri des menaces et autres effets néfastes des changements climatiques. Mesdames et Messieurs, il n'est pas trop tard, il n'est jamais trop tard pour mieux faire, et je sais, Monsieur le Président de la COP28, que telle est votre ambition. Aussi, tous mes vœux et ceux du peuple congolais vous accompagnent pour que ce rendez-vous planétaire de Dubaï soit celui de la solidarité internationale. Ce combat, nous ne pouvons pas le perdre. N'oublions pas que l'histoire nous jugera sur la façon dont nous l'aurons menée. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Mohamed Sheikh El Ghazazwani, President of Mauritania. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، أصحاب المعالي، السادة والسيدات، أيها الحضور الكريم، أود ابتداء أن أتقدم بجزيل الشكر لأخي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة الشقيقة على حفاوة الاستقبال وكرم الضيافة الأصيل، مهنئا إياه والشعب الإماراتي عموما على الاحتفاء بعيد الاتحاد وعلى استضافة هذه الدورة 28 لقمة دول اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية حول التغير المناخي. فلطالما تبوأت دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة بفضل الرؤى الاستشرافية لقيادتها الحكيمة مواقع الريادة في مجال تعزيز الاستدامة عموما ومواجهة التحديات البيئية خصوصا. وأهنئ كذلك صاحب المعالي سلطان الجابر رئيس قمة كوب 28 على التنظيم المحكم لهذه الدورة. كما أتقدم بالشكر الجزيل إلى صاحب المعالي السيد أنطونيو غوتيريس الأمين العام لمنظمة الأمم المتحدة على جهوده الكبيرة في مجال التغيرات المناخية. أيها السادة والسيدات، لا تبرز وحدة المصير الإنساني في أي مستوى من مستويات الحياة بأقوى وأوضح مما تتجلى عليه في التحديات البيئية. فمواجهة التغيرات المناخية إذن معركتنا جميعا، نربحها معا أو نخسرها معا، وكلنا ندرك أن لا سبيل لكسبها إلا بتضافر الجهود والتعاضد والتضامن، وهي تخاض أساسا على مسارين: مسار تعزيز القدرة على التكيف والصمود في وجه الانعكاسات السلبية للتغيرات المناخية على الأنسجة الاقتصادية والاجتماعية خاصة في الدول الأقل نمواً، ومسار الحد التدريجي من الانبعاثات الغازية ببناء مسارات تنموية ضئيلة الاعتماد على الكربون والتوسع في استخدام الطاقات المتجددة النظيفة. ولن تكون النتائج على أي من المسارين إلا بقدر التعاون والتضامن الدوليين. وباد للعيان أن هذا التضامن لا يزال من حيث الحجم والفاعلية دون المستوى المطلوب. فمن الملح والضروري إذن زيادة التمويلات الموجهة للتكيف والتحول البيئي بشكل كبير، ودفعها على نحو لا يفاقم مديونية الدول النامية. أيها السادة والسيدات، إننا في الجمهورية الإسلامية الموريتانية من أكثر الدول تأثرا بالتغيرات المناخية وما ينشأ عنها من تصحر وجفاف واضطراب في التساقطات المطرية من حيث الندرة والغزارة. فقد أصبح التصحر يغطي ما يربو على 80% من مساحتنا الترابية، وتسببت موجات الجفاف المتتالية في تمزيق أنسجتنا الاجتماعية والاقتصادية الريفية على قطاعات حيوية مثل الموارد المائية والإنتاج الزراعي والتنمية الحيوانية والثروة البحرية والمنظومات البيئية الطبيعية. ولذلك فنحن مدركون جيدا أن مواجهة التغيرات المناخية ضرورة اجتماعية واقتصادية وبيئية بل وأمنية. وانطلاقا من ذلك بذلنا جهودا كبيرة في مكافحة التصحر من خلال مبادرة السور الأخضر الكبير والمساهمة النشطة في لجنة المناخ لمنطقة الساحل واللجنة المشتركة لمكافحة آثار الجفاف في الساحل وباعتماد ميثاق مبادرة الشرق الأوسط الأخضر التي أطلقتها المملكة العربية السعودية الشقيقة، كما استثمرنا في التسيير المستدام للمناطق البحرية والساحلية ذات النفع البيئي العالمي. وعلاوة على ذلك وعلاوة على ذلك سعينا بكل الجهود إلى تعزيز قدرة مواطنينا على الصمود والتكيف مع تداعيات التغير المناخي على المنظومات الاجتماعية والاقتصادية. هذا على مستوى دعم التكيف والصمود، لكننا لم نغفل مسار بناء تنمية أقل اعتمادا على الكربون بالاستثمار الكبير في الطاقات المتجددة. فعلى الرغم من ضآلة إسهامنا في انبعاثات غازات الاحتباس الحراري، فقد استطعنا زيادة حصة الطاقات المتجددة من مجمل استهلاكنا الطاقوي على نحو معتبر، حيث وصلت إلى 34% سنة 2020 مع التخطيط للوصول إلى نسبة 50% سنة 2030. وبفضل برنامجنا الواسع لتطوير الهيدروجين الأخضر الذي هو الآن قيد الإطلاق، فإننا واثقون من تحقيق الهدف الذي رسمناه في مساهمتنا المناخية الوطنية المراجعة والمتمثل في خفض الانبعاثات الكربونية بنسبة 11%. غير أننا في كل هذه الجهود لا نزال نحتاج شأننا في ذلك شأن معظم الدول النامية إلى زيادة الدعم الدولي لتعزيز القدرة على الصمود والتكيف ولتأمين انتقال طاقوي منصف وفعال. وإنني أجدد الدعوة لرفع مستوى الدعم للدول النامية في مواجهتها للتحديات البيئية. لا أرجو لأعمال قمتنا هذه كل التوفيق والنجاح، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, President of Kazakhstan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Kazakhstan fully supports the United Nations' urgent call for tangible actions to safeguard our environment for future generations. We were the first country in the region to have ratified the Paris Agreement and adopted a carbon neutrality strategy for 2060. The resulting new environmental code of Kazakhstan will drive comprehensive adaptation of green technology in practically every sector of our national economy. There is extraordinary potential for wind and solar power in my country, as well as for green hydrogen. We will continue to work closely with our partners to unlock it. As the world's leading exporter of uranium, providing 43% of global supply, Kazakhstan plays a crucial role in carbon-free electricity generation on a global scale. Indeed, as the world decarbonizes in the coming decades, critical minerals, including rare earth metals, will become indispensable. Kazakhstan is poised to become a major supplier of these transition minerals. We are also actively supporting private green initiatives. For example, Kazakhstan-based the Plastic Association works on plastic waste-free projects contributing to eco-friendly solutions. Cutting methane emissions is the fastest opportunity we have to immediately slow the rate of global warming. That's why I am pleased to announce today that Kazakhstan has decided to join the Global Methane Pledge. At the same time, we are eager to tackle the enormous challenge of coal in our region by implementing our region's first ever
Just Energy Transition Partnership in Kazakhstan. For both of these to succeed, we look to our friends and partners for their concrete support. More widely, we look to the international community to scale up its commitments to greater meaningful climate finance. But finance is just the first hurdle. Even if we successfully limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees by 2050, Central Asian countries will still experience up to 2.5 degrees of temperature rise. So adaptation is both inevitable and imperative. Therefore, we urge that more resources be allocated to support the International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea. Moreover, we are pleased, together with France, to co-chair the first One Water Summit on the margins of the next United Nations General Assembly. To build a momentum on climate action in Central Asia, we decided to convene a regional climate summit in Kazakhstan in 2026 under the United Nations auspices. The climate emergency is a global crisis that requires a global response. Kazakhstan firmly believes that only through collective action and cooperation we can resolve the climate crisis. And finally, I extend my warmest congratulations to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for successful Cop28 presidency. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Santiago Peña Palacios, President of Paraguay. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excelencias, me siento honrado de participar de la COP28. Nos reunimos aquí diferentes culturas y tradiciones para definir en conjunto cómo abordar un desafío común, los efectos negativos del cambio climático. Esto demuestra que no es cierto que no pueda existir un diálogo entre tradiciones distintas. Espero sinceramente que aquí en Dubái marquemos un antes y un después en las medidas para reparar el daño aparecido en la tierra y el mar por manos humanas. Dichas medidas de protección al ambiente, empero, deben ser rigurosas y justas. Sobre todo, deben respetar los principios rectores del Acuerdo de París, como el de responsabilidades compartidas pero diferenciadas, teniendo en cuenta las capacidades y condiciones particulares de los Estados, especialmente en aquellos que necesitamos afianzar nuestro desarrollo. En mi país, Paraguay, 100% de la energía es limpia y es renovable. Sí, escucharon bien. 100% de la energía es limpia y es renovable. Albergamos una riqueza biológica única y un sólido potencial como sumidero de carbono. El 44% del territorio nacional cuenta con cobertura forestal y el 15% se encuentra bajo el régimen de áreas silvestres protegidas. El 94% de la superficie sembrada de soja en la región oriental de mi país, de la que somos el sexto mayor productor mundial, está libre de deforestación. Estamos entre los 10 principales exportadores de carne vacuna del mundo, cuya calidad está garantizada por el cumplimiento estricto de los protocolos sanitarios y con alimentación basada en pastura natural. Nuestras emisiones de CO2 son las más bajas de la región latinoamericana, representando solo el 0,1% de las emisiones globales. La cuarta comunicación nacional sobre cambio climático demuestra una reducción del 44% de las emisiones del sector de cambio de uso de la tierra y silvicultura y un 40% de las emisiones de metano en el sector agrícola y ganadero con respecto al año 2010. Dimos nuestros primeros pasos para insertarnos en el mercado voluntario de carbono. El Paraguay es un actor clave para la seguridad alimentaria y energética. Tiene una enorme conciencia sobre el ambiente y ha tomado pasos para ser considerado un ejemplo en este campo. Es hora de que el mundo lo sepa. Insto a la Convención a simplificar los procesos y eliminar las barreras que impiden el acceso a los fondos climáticos. El planeta es un patrimonio común y por ello alentamos a una participación sin exclusiones en el ámbito de la COP. En tal sentido, proponemos la incorporación de la República de China-Taiwán en este proceso. Finalmente, señor presidente, quisiera enfatizar la importancia de promover un enfoque más equitativo y no punitivo en los desafíos que enfrentamos en materia climática. Los países en vías de desarrollo no podemos postergar nuestro desarrollo por exigencias unilaterales que rayan la arbitrariedad. El Paraguay, queridos amigos, aboga por un planeta verde, solidario y próspero, en el que todos cumplamos con los compromisos asumidos para reconstruir la confianza en el sistema multilateral. Tengo la convicción firme de que en nuestros esfuerzos conjuntos primará la determinación de dejar un digno legado a las futuras generaciones. Esto es, que tendremos la sabiduría de dejar un mundo mucho mejor del que hemos encontrado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abdulatif Jamal Rashid, President of Iraq. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو والمعالي، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نتقدم لكم بأطيب التحيات من العراق، بلاد وادي الرافدين، مهد الحضارات البشرية التي قدمت العلم والمعرفة والقانون، فكانت أول أرض شرعت فيها القوانين المقترحة لآثارها الطبيعي المستمد من نهريهما الدجلة والفرات، والذين أصبحوا اليوم مهددين للانحسار والجفاف بفعل تأثيرات عديدة من بينها التغيير المناخي. إن العراق بلد القليل انبعاثات من غازات الاحتباس الحراري، إلا أنه من أكثر بلدان العالم هشاشة تجاه التغييرات المناخية، خصوصا في قطاع المياه والزراعة، إذ يواجه أزمة مائية شديدة الخطورة. فما نعانيه اليوم بفعل تراجع إيراداتنا المائية من دول المنبع وتأثير التغيير المناخي وأساليب الري التقليدية أصبح يهدد إرث الحضارة وحاضرنا ومستقبل أجيالنا القادمة. وخير مثال على ذلك جفاف الأهوار في جنوب العراق المدرجة ضمن لائحة التراث العالمي. فإن أحداث الطقس المتطرفة في العراق من درجات الحرارية القياسية وقلة التساقط المطري تسبب في اتساع رقعة الجفاف والتصحر وتقلص أراضي زراعية وتدور الأراضي وزيادة العواصف الترابية والرملية وخسارة الموارد الطبيعية، وما نتج عنها من تحديات اقتصادية أدت إلى زيادة الفقر وزيادة معدل النزوح الداخلي والهجرة الخارجية. إن الصراع فيما يخص المياه ليس جديدا، وضع العراق كدولة مصب ليس نادرا، ولضمان التوزيع العادل للمياه نرجو أن يشمل نقاشكم فيما يخص الخسائر والأضرار والحقوق العادلة لدول المصب لضمان أمنها المائي، فلا أمن غذائي من دون ماء. وهنا نشير إلى ما قام به أسلافنا في بلاد الرافدين، حيث أوجدوا حلولا لهذه الإشكالية قبل 4500 سنة، وذلك بعقد أول اتفاقية لتقاسم الموارد المائية عن طريق التفاوض. وها نحن اليوم نسعى لذلك على مستوى عالمي من خلال مجموعة من الاتفاقيات، آخرها اتفاقية الحماية والاستخدام المستدام للمياه العابرة، والتي نعمل على اعتمادها وتفعيلها بالسرعة الممكنة. يأتيكم العراق متأخرا إذا لم ينتمي لاتفاقية المناخ إلا سنة 2009، وذلك بسبب إهمال النظام السابق للبيئة. إلى أننا مصممون على مضى قدما وبخطوات متسارعة لكي نقوم بما يجب علينا. فقد قدم العراق وثيقة مساهمته المحدودة وطنيا NDC لتكون السياسة العليا الطموحة لزيادة المرونة تجاه تغيير المناخ، والتي ترسم خطتنا المستقبلية لتخفيف وتكييف وإنجاز أهداف التنمية المستدامة بسنة 2030. لذا يتم إعداد تقرير البلاغ الوطني الثاني للتغييرات المناخية والتقرير المحدد لكل سنتين والخاص بجلد الانبعاثات في العراق، وهو ما يعكس الالتزام العراق بمشاركة العالم بالالتزاماته المناخية. وبناء على ذلك اتخذت الحكومة العراقية إجراءات سريعة لتنفيذ مشاريع الطاقة النظيفة والمتجددة ولتقليل انبعاثات الغاز المصاحب في إنتاج النفط وإيقاف حرقه والاستفادة منه وصولا إلى تصوير انبعاثات الغاز المصاحب في 2030 وتخفيض الانبعاثات الغازية الدفيئة من منظومة الكهربائية من خلال تعزيز كفاءتها. نحن على ثقة بأن مخرجات مؤتمر دبي للمناخ ستكون شاملة ومتوازنة ومنصفة فيما يخص التقييم العالمي والانتقال العادل وصنوف الخسائر والأضرار والهدف العالمي لتكييف مستندة إلى مبدأ المسؤولية المشتركة لكل ما تبنيها وحسب القدرات والظروف الوطنية لكل دولة، وبما يحقق الانتقال العادل والمنصف نحو الطاقة النظيفة المتجددة والمستدامة وزيادة مرونة التكييف مع التغيير المناخي مع مراعاة حاجة البلدان النامية في الحصول على تمويل المناخي لبناء القدرات ونقل التكنولوجيا. وفيما يخص منطقتنا فإن العراق والدول المجاورة في الخليج على خطوط أمامية لمجابهة آثار التغييرات المناخية، وحتى إن استطاع العالم أن ينجز أهداف اتفاق باريس ويحدد من زيادة معدل الحرارة إلى ما دون درجتين، إلى أن ارتفاع الحرارة خاصة على شواطئ الخليج سيتجاوز هذا الحد بعدة درجات، ونحن منذ الآن نعاني من ارتفاع درجات الحرارة ومن العواصف الترابية ومن شحة المياه. وكذلك هذه التغييرات لا تعترف بحدود الدول، كما أن دولنا تعتمد في اقتصادنا على الوقود الأحفوري، وهي فئة تأخذ اتفاقية المناخ ظروفها الخاصة بنظر الاعتبار، وكل إجراء يقوم به أي منا سواء في مجال التخفيف أو في مجال التكييف سيكون له أثر إيجابي يمتد إلى دول الأخرى. فلا خيار لدينا إلا أن نتضافر بجهودنا كي نواجه سوية وبكل إمكانياتنا أخطار التغيير المناخي. لذا ومن هذه المنصة ندعو دول الجوار في الخليج إلى بذل مزيد من الجهود للسعي معا كمجموعة تفاوضية واحدة وبموقف موحد يبين صعوبة مستقبلنا المناخي للعالم ويسعى لضمان حقوق شعبنا وإقامة تجمع إقليمي يضم الدول المتشاطئة الثمان على الخليج، وهي التي ستتعرض أكثر من غيرها لآثار تغييرات المناخ الخطيرة. وفي الختام لا يفوتنا إلا وإن ندين العدوان المستمر على غزة ونطالب المجتمع الدولي بالوقوف أمام هذا العدوان، ونكرر موقفنا في العراق في القضية الفلسطينية حقه في تقرير المصير. وأشكركم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Alexander Vučić, President of Serbia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. First and foremost, allow me to extend a heartfelt congratulations to the United Arab Emirates government for bringing the world together at a critical moment for global transformative climate action, despite the challenges we all face today worldwide. As we once again gather to face the greatest challenge of our time, we are at a critical time in the fight against climate change. Catastrophic global warming and ongoing extreme weather events are casting a dangerous shadow over our collective future. Today I stand before you not only as the representative of the Republic of Serbia, but also as a global citizen advocating for global well-being. Across the border of the Republic of Serbia, the echoes of climate change resonate disturbingly loudly. Our country is at the forefront, struggling with alarmingly high average temperatures above the global average, since average temperature in Serbia already increased by 1.8 degrees Celsius, and in summer it is as high as 2.6 degrees Celsius. At the same time, climate projections indicate that if we continue business as usual, by the end of the century we can expect an increase in the average temperature up to 5.8 degrees Celsius, a cataclysm of a kind that threatens our economic and social fabric. This year will most certainly take the infamous title of the warmest ever recorded, not just globally, but in our country as well. Aside from warmest months ever recorded being July, August, September and October, we witnessed for the first time 2 tropical nights with temperatures over 20 degrees Celsius during the month of October, which is unheard of in Serbia. In addition, we are still calculating the damage drought made to our economy last year, while on the other hand, severe storms devastated our cities, causing a vast damage as well. We must stand united against climate change, and we must act now. We will continue to contribute to the global fight against climate change by improving our national system for mitigation and adaptation in line with our national circumstances and with the support of our development partners. In steadfast response to this existential threat, I'm honored to announce the government of the Republic of Serbia's unwavering commitment. In June of this year, we charted a transformative course with the adoption of our low-carbon development strategy, which served as the basis for revised national determined contribution that raised the ambition of our initial NDC by more than 3 times. Long-term requirements of the Paris Agreement as well as the EU accession process are the basis for long-term vision of the strategy that by 2050 Serbia will be a low-carbon society with a competitive and resource-efficient economy which provides to citizens new, green jobs and quality life in a climate-resilient society. With this in mind and guided by science, we also developed our climate change adaptation program, which is to be adopted in the forthcoming period. Adaptation program will provide climate risk and vulnerability assessment and propose medium and long-term adaptation policies and measures in the most vulnerable sectors such as agriculture, infrastructure, forestry and human health. Recognizing that the fight against climate change transcends borders, we issue a solemn call to action for all. While our national progress is unstoppable, it is part of a larger puzzle. The Republic of Serbia is ready to play its role in the global orchestra against climate change. We call upon the international community, especially our developed counterparts, to honor their commitments to financial and technical assistance. Let this be a call for armed cooperation and shared responsibility, a call for the clarity of saying one against the pessimistic scenarios. Although I have to add something, which is my personal opinion, and once again, many thanks to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the President of the United Arab Emirates, for his great hospitality. Just would like to say that we all gathered here because of a terribly difficult problem that we are facing with, which is climate change. But how are we going to resolve this issue if we are not able to resolve all the geopolitical problems we are facing with today? There are many wars throughout the world that we haven't been able to stop in the recent period. And moreover, I'm afraid that we won't be able to do so. If we were not capable of delivering results in this, how we can be so sure, how we can be so certain that we'll deliver the very best results, the very proper results on climate change issues as well. And just to add to that, I believe that bringing us all back to the real principles of the Organization of the United Nations that we established after the Second World War, because we have to act in accordance and adherence with rules, regulations that were accepted by most of the members of the international community, by most or by all the states of international community. It has to happen, otherwise we'll always face arbitration, different approaches, and will never deliver better results even on this. You cannot have different approaches towards territorial integrities of some countries and we as Serbia know this better than anyone else dare to say. And on the other hand, I heard today a phrase, as we come together, as we come together, as we come together. Let us find a common denominator which will find a way, find a path to resolve firstly the biggest geopolitical issues and then to tackle in a very proper way an issue of climate changes which is becoming one of the most important. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Wawel John Charles Rankalawan, President of Seychelles. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of Cop28 Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, Heads of State and Government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my gratitude to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and to the people of the United Arab Emirates for the warm welcome and hospitality extended to my delegation and myself. I take this opportunity to congratulate you on the organization of COP28 and wish you prosperity as you celebrate your 52nd National Day. The collective efforts to foster cooperation in response to the most pressing issue of our time are indeed commendable. I am honored, therefore, to address this esteemed assembly on behalf of the people of Seychelles. In our shared pursuit of a sustainable future, the urgency of our deliberations here in Dubai cannot be overstated. As parties to the Convention, we committed to deliver on commitments such as the USD 100 billion promise, scaling up adaptation finance, new collective quantified goal on finance, and most recently, the Loss and Damage Fund. We are yet at another COP, and I am disheartened to state that most of these commitments are yet to be fulfilled, despite the urgency required to address the climate crisis. As leaders, I call for your unwavering shift in political will that will translate into concrete actions so as to confine global temperature rise within the critical threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, small island developing states are on the front line of climate change, facing rising sea levels, coastal erosion, increased frequency of extreme weather events, and the loss of vital ecosystems. Whether we are high income, low income, or among the least developed countries, our specificities are the same, and what the industrialized nations emit have a direct impact on our coastlines and livelihoods. We are simply islands floating in the ocean, and therefore we must be treated as a unique and separate category when it comes to assisting us. I call on SEEDS to unite and support each other. As I speak, my country is experiencing devastating impacts of climate change, specifically damage to the coastline and critical coastal infrastructure caused by higher tides, frequent storm surges, and heavy rainfall. Coupled with other impacts, these are endangering the livelihoods of my people and our islands. A recent comprehensive survey only on the main populated granitic islands of the Seychelles, conducted by our technical teams, estimated that we need over 50 million USD for road infrastructure works and other measures to mitigate coastal erosion. Our updated NDC highlighted a further 600 million USD will be required over the next 10 years for both mitigation and adaptation sector, translating to 5% of GDP annually or 10% of the annual budget. If we are to add the disaster happening to our Coraline Islands, that figure could be doubled, let alone tripled. Like many seeds, 90% of the country's infrastructure and human activities occur along its low-lying coastal areas and are thus vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. The current trajectory means Seychelles' economy stands to be severely undermined, whereby forcing us to divert much-needed finance to environment protection instead of investing in education, health, sports, agriculture, food security, modernization, and giving our people a better standard of living. Ladies and gentlemen, we made history last year by establishing the Loss and Damage Fund, and this year we made history again by operationalizing the Loss and Damage Fund on the first day of this COP, with UAE and Germany pledging $100 million each. It is absolutely vital that this fund is equitable and genuinely helpful to countries that are experiencing climate-related disasters. It should be inclusive enough without limiting access to finance, especially for high-income seeds like Seychelles. We need less complicated and complex financial mechanisms that will allow us seeds to easily access those financial opportunities. Again, my call is to consider our special circumstances as islands in the middle of oceans. Seychelles, for example, is known to be outside the cyclone belt, and we are considered high income. But when a cyclone hits neighboring Madagascar or Mauritius, the effects of adverse weather conditions affect all our islands, including our capital. In April 2016, Fantala, a Category 5 cyclone, hit one of our islands 3 times, destroying everything, including the communication network and homes of workers, creating 2 new islands in the lagoon. The resulting tsunami of the earthquake of December 2004 in Sumatra, Indonesia, thousands of miles away, traveled all the way to Seychelles, destroying human life and coastal infrastructure. My point is very simple. Don't categorize islands into economic bands, but treat all islands in the same manner and allow all of us to have access to the Loss and Damage Fund. We all lose from the damage you cause, yet we clean up our emissions and help mop up those of industrialized nations. The current criteria used to access concessionary finance puts seeds such as Seychelles at a severe disadvantage under the current labels. There is an urgent need to reform the multilateral international financial institutions to address the restrictive conditionalities. This reform is necessary to help fund climate change projects. In other words, finance needs to be more readily available, accessible, and affordable to support these projects. As the current chair of SEEDSDOC and the African Island States Climate Commission, my plea to Cop28 is for the developed world and the multilateral international financial institutions to have a fresh look at the seeds, which in fact are large oceanic states, and to take into account our respective particularities. Despite contributing very little to global emissions, seeds like Seychelles bear the brunt of the climate crisis. We are actively engaged in decarbonizing our energy sector including transitioning to green mobility. Additionally, as a dedicated environment champion, Seychelles remains committed to safeguard its terrestrial and marine ecosystems. When I signed the United Nations High Seas Treaty, or the BBNJ, earlier this year at the UN, I smiled to myself because, in a sense, Seychelles had already ratified it, since we are already protecting 32% of the ocean under our care. We are protecting nearly 100% of our seagrass and that of our mangroves, and another 50% of our scarce landmass. Recent sightings of blue whales in our waters after more than 60 years' absence serves as evidence that our conservation efforts are creating a safe haven for marine life. The message is loud and clear. Seychelles is a committed partner that can be trusted. We believe in what we preach, and we walk the talk. The evidence is there. However, we cannot do it alone. We need the financial support of the whole world to help the 100,000 people on these islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the metaphorical hourglass is dwindling. Cop28 presents a pivotal call to action to build climate resilience before the last grain of sand slips away. In unity and determination, let us seize this moment to reverse our course and forge a sustainable and resilient future for generations to come. Let's not leave anyone behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. May I remind the Speaker to maintain 3 minutes speaking time limit? Thank you. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of Turkey. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Saygıdeğer devlet ve hükümet başkanları, Sayın Genel Sekreter, sizleri şahsım ve milletim adına en kalbi duygularımla selamlıyorum. Zirve toplantımızın hayırlara vesile olmasını diliyorum. Samimi misafirperverlikleri için emirlik makamlarına teşekkür ediyorum. Dünyamız koronavirüs salgını ve Ukrayna-Rusya savaşının ardından şimdi de Gazze'deki katliamların acı sonuçlarıyla karşı karşıya bulunuyor. Türkiye tüm bu krizlerde barışın yanında olmuş, adalet ve hakkaniyet temelinde çözüm için çalışmıştır. İklim değişikliğine de bu perspektiften yaklaşıyoruz. Sera gazı emisyonunda tarihi sorumluluğumuz %1'in altında olmasına rağmen kendi imkanlarımızı kullanarak çok önemli adımlar atıyoruz. 2053 yılı itibariyle net sıfır emisyon hedefini gerçekleştirmeyi öngörüyoruz. 2030 senesine kadar emisyon azaltım hedefimizi 2 katına çıkardık. Bu kapsamda yıl sonu itibariyle ise 66,6 milyon ton karbondioksit emisyon azaltımı bekliyoruz. Toplam kurulu güç içerisinde yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarının payını %55'e yükselttik. Bu oranla Avrupa'da 5. dünyada ise 12. sırada yer alıyoruz. Jeotermal kurulu gücünde Avrupa'da 1. dünyada 4.'yüz. Hidroelektrik santrali kurulu gücünde ise Avrupa'da 2. dünyada 9. sıradayız. Hidrojen teknolojileri stratejimizi uygulamaya aldık. Ayrıca net sıfır emisyon hedefi bağlamında çelik, alüminyum, çimento ve gübre sektörleri karbonsuzlaşma yol haritamızı tamamladık. 2053'te yenilenebilir enerjinin payını %69'a çıkarmayı planlıyoruz. Eşimin himayesinde başlatılan sıfır atık projesiyle atıkların geri kazanım oranını 2035 yılında %60'a taşıyacağız. Tüm bu çalışmaların maliyetinin yüksekliği hepimizin malumudur. İklim finansmanı kaynaklarına ve teknoloji transferi imkanlarına daha adil şekilde erişebilmemiz bu bakımdan büyük önem arz ediyor. 6 Şubat'ta yaşadığımız deprem felaketine rağmen ne ekonomide ne de iklim değişikliğiyle mücadeledeki hedeflerimizden hiçbir zaman kopmadık. 14 milyon insanımızı ve 11 ilimizi olumsuz etkileyen depremlerin yol açtığı yaraları hamdolsun hızla sarıyoruz. Şehirlerimizin yeniden inşasında da çevreyi korumak, iklim ve çevre dostu yapılar inşa etmek önceliklerimizin başında yer almaktadır. Değerli dostlar, iklim kriziyle ilgili görüşlerimizi paylaşırken hemen yanı başımızda Filistin topraklarında yaşanan insani krize değinmeden geçemeyiz. İsrail saldırıları sonucu çoğunluğu çocuk ve kadın 16 bini aşkın Filistinli masum sivilin hayatını kaybetmesi hiçbir şekilde meşru gösterilemez. Gazze'de yaşananlar insanlık suçudur, savaş suçudur ve bu suçu işleyenlerden uluslararası hukuk önünde mutlaka hesap sorulmalıdır. Son gelişmelerle birlikte 1967 sınırları temelinde başkenti Doğu Kudüs olan bağımsız, egemen ve toprak bütünlüğüne haiz bir Filistin devletinin kurulmasının ehemmiyetini hep birlikte tekrar gördük. Türkiye olarak bunun tesis ve temini noktasında her türlü sorumluluğu almaya hazırız. Dünya 5'ten büyüktür ve daha adil bir dünya mümkündür şiarımızı burada tekrar vurgulamak istiyorum. Bu düşüncelerle sözlerime son verirken kıymetli kardeşlerim Devlet Başkanı Sayın Muhammed bin Zayed ve Devlet Başkan Yardımcısı Dubai Emiri Muhammed El Maktum başta olmak üzere zirvemizin düzenlenmesinde emeği geçen herkese teşekkürlerimi sunuyorum. Hükümetler Arası İklim Değişikliği Paneli'nin 60. oturumunu Ocak ayında İstanbul'da gerçekleştireceğiz. Ayrıca 2026 yılında düzenlenecek Birleşmiş Milletler İklim Değişikliği 31. Taraflar Konferansı'na ev sahipliği içinde adaylığımızı açıkladık. Siz değerli dostlarımın bu kapsamda gereken desteği vereceğinizden şüphe duymuyorum. Sizleri en derin saygıyla, sevgiyle selamlıyorum. Kalın sağlıcakla.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mr. Zuzana Kaputova, President of Slovakia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the findings of the global stocktake are clear. Humanity is marching towards the precipice. How many more climate fora do we need to avoid a free fall into it? The number of weather-related disasters almost tripled in the past 4 decades. Every 5 seconds, someone dies a premature death because of pollution. Our inaction will soon make it every 4 seconds. 88% of the existing disease as a result of climate change occurs in children under 5 years of age. How much more do we want to harm the future generations? Excellencies, Decisions which can avoid the current deadly course are ours to take. The solutions are right in front of us, visible, effective, and low-cost options are already available to mitigate the climate crisis impact. We have the technologies, resources, and skills needed. Let's use them. Our efforts must be ambitious, collective, and universal. The science is clear. Our emissions must peak before 2025. Slovakia will do its fair share. Our emissions have peaked already. By 2030, they will be 55% less than in 1990. In the next 7 years, we will invest 5% of our GDP from public sources to decarbonize our economy and society. At the end of this year, Slovakia is stopping the use of coal as a source of electricity. In 3 years, we will phase it out from heat generation. By 2030, we plan to reach 29% of renewables share in our electricity production. 85% of our electricity is already made with zero emissions. We commit to increase this to 90% by 2025. Slovakia is endorsing the Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Pledge. Since 2015, Slovakia's green finance has grown almost fivefold, including in greener ODA and our contribution to Green Climate Fund. The Loss and Damage Fund should help support the most vulnerable, and all big emitters and economies must step in and step up. Excellencies, let's make this COP the first one, where the benefits of our concrete commitments exceed our excuses and the carbon footprint of the planes we arrived on. Thank you.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Felipe Jacinto Nyusi, President of Mozambique. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Senhor Presidente, Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, é com elevada honra e satisfação que, em representação do povo e governo de Moçambique, uso a palavra nesta sessão de abertura da Cop28 com o objetivo de rever o que fizemos nos últimos anos para, em conjunto, reorientarmos a nossa agenda na ação climática. Moçambique, apesar de contribuir com menos de 0,5% em emissões de gases de efeito estufa, está entre 10 países que sofrem dos efeitos adversos de mudanças climáticas. As intempéries registradas de janeiro a março deste ano, que inclui o ciclone Fred, o mais duradouro, causou morte de 306 pessoas, afetou cerca de 1,3 milhões de pessoas e destruiu diversas infraestruturas econômicas, sociais e produtivas. Neste contexto, nós apoiamos iniciativas inovadoras de financiamento como de conversão da dívida pela ação climática e acesso ao financiamento concessional aos países em desenvolvimento. Moçambique aderiu à iniciativa africana dos mercados de carbono e iniciamos a elaboração de um plano de ativação do mercado de carbono. Estamos em negociações com alguns países para assinar um acordo de venda dos resultados de redução de emissões. Considerando o potencial que Moçambique tem a gerar créditos de carbono, principalmente nos setores florestal, agrícola, de energias renováveis, bem como na economia azul, Adotamos uma regulamentação nacional para projetos de rede mais e em 2018 fomos o primeiro país a receber benefícios com a certificação de 1,9 milhão de créditos de carbono. Em termos do uso de energias renováveis para a produção de energia elétrica, em Moçambique, cerca de 70% da energia produzida vem de fontes hídricas, 14% de gás natural e 16% de restantes fontes com destaque para a energia solar. Sendo esta a primeira COP, após o Acordo de Paris, a fazer balanço global da situação em termos de mitigação das mudanças climáticas, aproveitamos a oportunidade para instar as partes a honrarem os compromissos assumidos de apoiar os países que pouco contribuem às emissões de gases de efeito estufa, mas possuem recursos domésticos limitados para financiar a ação climática. Ainda instamos as diferentes instituições governamentais e não governamentais para aumentar o financiamento às ações de investigação e inovação tecnológica, porque com o conhecimento científico as comunidades poderão saber como melhor se adaptar às mudanças climáticas. Excelências, adiar a ação climática hoje é um claro investimento na destruição de forma irreversível do nosso planeta e da humanidade. Termino convidando os parceiros privados e públicos para se juntar a nós na viabilização da iniciativa para a gestão sustentável e integrada da floresta de Miombo, lançada com a Declaração de Maputo. O Miombo, com os seus recursos de conhecimentos, porque a mudança climática são uma das ameaças à floresta Miombo, um ecossistema rico em biodiversidade. E estamos a agendar uma conferência internacional no próximo ano para discutirmos sobre Miombo e assim darmos a nossa contribuição para o sequestro de carbono. E muito obrigado a todos pela atenção.
But thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Rashad Mohammed Ali Al Alimi, President of Yemen. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد رئيس دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة، أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو رؤساء الدول والحكومات، السيد أنطونيو غوتريش أمين عام الأمم المتحدة، السيد رئيس المؤتمر، الحضور جميعا. في البداية أود أن أعرب عن خالص التقدير وأصدق التهاني للأشقاء في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة على التنظيم والاستضافة الكريمة لهذه القمة العالمية الرفيعة، والشكر موصول أيضا للأمم المتحدة وأمينها العام على جهوده المنسقة مع الأطراف المعنية من أجل الوصول إلى هذه المحطة الجديدة لمواجهة المخاطر المتسارعة التي تهدد حاضر ومستقبل كوكبنا. السيدات والسادة، منذ نحو عام التقينا على أرض مصر الكنانة من أجل الأهداف ذاتها التي تضعنا في كل مرة أمام مسؤوليات ثقيلة والتزامات حاسمة يجب الوفاء بها لحماية كوكبنا في ظل تزايد مخاطر التغيرات المناخية مع كل ارتفاع جديد في درجات الحرارة التي وصلت ذروتها القياسية هذا العام. وها نحن اليوم نجتمع في رحاب مدينة دبي في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة التي عرفت طريقها مبكرا للتحول نحو الحيازات الخضراء بإلهام من مؤسسها الراحل الشيخ زايد بن سلطان آل نهيان طيب الله ثراه، على أمل أن نرى تقدما حقيقيا في الجهود الجماعية لخفض الانبعاثات وبناء القدرة على التكيف وتعزيز تمويل برامج المناخ، وخصوصا ذلك الموجه إلى دولنا الأقل نموا التي تزداد خسائرها عاما بعد عام. أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والسمو، السيدات والسادة، في الشهر الماضي شاركنا أهلنا في محافظات المهرة وسقطرى وحضرموت أياما عصيبة في قلب أسوأ عاصفة مدارية شهدها بلدنا المنكوب بحرب الميليشيات الحوثية المدعومة من النظام الإيراني. لقد جعل إعصار تيج الذي تعرضت له بلادي مدنا بأكملها معزولة عن محيطها، وتسببت بأضرار جسيمة في الخدمات الأساسية، كما جرفت الفيضانات حيازات زراعية واسعة، ودفعت مؤقتا بآلاف السكان بعيدا عن منازلهم ليضافون إلى ملايين المشردين من بطش الميليشيات الحوثية الإرهابية على مدى السنوات العشر الماضية. إن اليمن أيتها السيدات أيها السادة يواجه تحديات أمنية واقتصادية وسياسية بالغة الصعوبة جراء الحرب المستمرة التي ترفض الميليشيات الحوثية كل المبادرات لوقفها وإنهاء المعاناة الإنسانية الأسوأ في العالم، وهو ما يجعل الجهد الوطني في التصدي لمخاطر التغير المناخي أمر في غاية التعقيد. وفي بلادنا ساهمت الحاجة للكهرباء في ظل ظروف الحرب القاهرة إلى إطلاق جهد مجتمعي واسع للتحول نحو الطاقة الشمسية التي قد تصل قدرتها التراكمية إلى نحو 400 ميجاوات على مستوى البلاد. وهنا يجب التوقف باعتزاز وتقدير لمساهمة أشقائنا في دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة في دعم مشاريع الطاقة المتجددة التي دخلت الحزمة الأولى منها في مدينة عدن بقدرة 120 ميجاوات، على أمل زيادة هذه المشاريع إلى 1000 ميجاوات. كما أننا نخطط لزراعة 1,000,000 شجرة سدر في 10 محافظات ضمن مبادرة الأمير محمد بن سلمان للشرق الأوسط الأخضر. أتمنى لكم التوفيق جميعا لتحقيق كل الأهداف التي اجتمعنا من أجلها، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Dr. Hage Geoffrey Giengo, President of Namibia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. Your Excellency, President, United Arab Emirates, allow me to extend sincere gratitude to His Highness, President Naham, the people of the UAE, for graciously hosting the 28th United Nations Conference of Parties. I wish to commend the visionary efforts of the UAE government in championing sustainable development and environmental protection. The sixth report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Changes identifies Namibia as one of the most vulnerable nations in sub-Saharan Africa, with rising temperatures, increased evaporation, and rainfall variability posing significant challenges. Therefore, for a drought-prone country like Namibia, climate change stands as a formidable obstacle to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The estimated cost for implementing our nationally determined contributions is $15 billion by 2030, with 90% of it contingent on financial support from the multilateral financing windows under UN FCCC. Namibia has established a world-class blended finance infrastructure fund that is ready to receive climate financing today to facilitate necessary action we need. Our national adaptation plan is enhanced by the announcement Namibia made 3 years ago during the 75th General Assembly, boldly signaling our intention to leverage innovative financial tools to mobilize sustainable climate financing to combat climate change. 1 year later, in Glasgow, Scotland, on the margins of Cop28, we announced the development of large-scale green hydrogen projects that will provide the world of the clean molecules needed to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors. Today, as part of our efforts to build green industrial clusters in Namibia, we are developing more than 9 hydrogen projects. To do so successfully, we must deploy more than $20 billion to give future generations a fighting chance against a warming climate. Ladies and gentlemen, as we enter the inauguration global stock take, Namibia emphasizes that the process should help us to identify gaps in financial support needed, the support that was provided so far since the adoption of the Paris Conference in 2015 to date. Finally, Cop28 provides a platform for nations to strengthen partnerships, share knowledge, and collectively tackle the global challenges posed by climate change. Solidarity, equity, and cooperation are essential if we are serious about fixing climate finance and placing livelihood at the heart of climate action. Let us seize this moment at COP28 to avert a climate catastrophe. Let us seize this moment by taking bold decisions that will protect our planet for generations to come. No more conferences, but only implementation. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Nikos Christodoulides, President of Cyprus. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, I would like to take this opportunity to express my deepest appreciation to the government of the United Arab Emirates for hosting and steering the work of COP28 and indeed for its leadership on climate change. There is an evident reason why the world's attention is focused on our deliberations here in Dubai. The gravity of the situation regarding climate change calls for global action, for swift and resolute decisions, but also leveling up our ambition for the future of our planet and for the future generations. It is a global challenge that recognizes no borders and can only be addressed through multilateral cooperation. Indeed, the latest IPCC report of March 2023 details the magnitude of changes in the climate system caused by anthropogenic emissions that is unprecedented in the history of humanity. Human-caused climate change is increasing both the frequency of the magnitude of extreme weather events in the whole world, devastates our ecosystems and livelihoods, as well as, by consequence, our societies and economies. For some part of the world, that is already an existential threat. Excellencies, Cyprus, situated at the heart of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East, an area that is highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, is experiencing these effects at higher levels than the global averages. During the last few years, we have witnessed higher frequency and extent of huge wildfires, droughts and floods, as well as prolonged periods of extreme heat waves. These phenomena have destroyed large parts of our forests, as well as the unique ecosystems in our region, and have had a devastating impact on livelihoods, demanding urgent national and regional responses. Dear friends, deep emission cuts are necessary across countries and all sectors of activity within our societies. It is clear that we must act urgently, decisively, and collectively. One example of collective regional action is the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East Climate Change Initiative, initiated by Cyprus in 2019 in the context of recognizing the need for regional synergies to combat and mitigate the impact of climate change in our region, in full line with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Last year, in Sharm el-Sheikh, the heads of state and governments of countries belonging to the initiative adopted a political declaration as well as the Regional Action Plan. Currently, we are in the process of moving forward with its implementation. We initiated a dialogue and stock-taking with the countries that are part of this initiative to jointly undertake and move forward specific projects and actions to promote climate change mitigation and adaptation. Furthermore, firmly believing in the necessity for regional and transnational cooperation, the Republic of Cyprus will host in 2024 the first Commonwealth ministerial meeting on the sustainable use of the ocean. The meeting is to establish the principles, priorities and actions that will govern the future Commonwealth Ocean Declaration. Your Excellencies, global ambition must also substantially increase in line with the Paris Agreement to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius objective within reach. With this in mind, we need to successfully conclude the first global stocktake with a determined and forward-looking outcome, crystallizing pathways and opportunities for a climate-resilient and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would like to acknowledge the importance of youth, of the generations that will come after us. These voices are speaking up loud and clear and expect us to deliver to them a future of hope. Let us heed that call, let us walk the path to climate neutrality, and let us come together to build resilient, sustainable and green businesses, communities and countries of the future. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Vehegin Kuchturan, President of Armenia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to congratulate the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and the government of United Arab Emirates on excellent organization of the Cop28. Climate change remains a topping global issue, and the COP session reminds us of the need to take a holistic approach to it for a greener, more sustainable, peaceful and healthier future. In 2015, we made a historic step by adopting the Paris Agreement. However, as the latest report of the International Panel on Climate Change highlights, we are way off track from pathways for keeping its goals. The reasons for this numerous, including with the continued renaissance and fossil fuel-based economies at its core. It is clear that we cannot continue down the path of excessive and insustainable exploration of hydrocarbons for energy production. Pacing down the demand for supply of fossil fuels is an imperative. We need to build energy systems which are more carbon neutral and less fossil fuel related to meet our ambitions for climate change mitigation. The solutions are there. We need to accelerate science and build on the positive developments of the last decade by doubling and tripling the use of renewable energy sources. For that end, we need sufficient climate financing, with the loss and damage fund being a cornerstone. Dear attendees, as a mountains developing country, Armenia is facing many challenges in this area. World Bank projections for Armenia indicate warming at levels significantly above the global average of up to 4.7 degrees by the 2090s. Under the highest emissions pathway, this places Armenia among the most vulnerable countries in the Eastern European and Central Asia. Mr. President, despite the serious humanitarian challenges and external security threats, Armenia takes proactive measures to fulfill our Paris Agreement promises, employing both conventional and innovative solutions that involve all segments of the society. In 2021, Armenia declared its post-2020 climate actions, an NDC with a 14% greenhouse reduction target by 2030. Recently, we developed long-term low-emission development strategies to guide us toward carbon neutrality. Our climate ambitions are largely increased in the carbon-neutral energy transition. By 2030, we aim for a 15% of share of solar energy in our total energy production. Armenia firmly believes that the attainment of our climate commitments can be achieved with long-term and sustainable use of nuclear power as a carbon-neutral source of energy, and we appreciate of efforts of the International Atomic Energy Agency in this regard. Armenia is determined to achieving its ambition targets and securing a clean and sustainable future for the next generation. We stand ready to further contribute to global effort to this end. Thank you.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Ifan Ali, President of Guyana. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I have not come here to restate the climate challenges the world faces. Instead, I want to urge us all to reflect on how we can meet these challenges. Because too often, the climate debate is dominated by some who are stuck in the past, who deploy outrage and anger as their only tools. But the landscape has shifted. If we want to achieve a just, affordable transition to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, we need everybody at the table who has a solution to propose. And we need to recognize that climate action cannot be to the detriment of the world's developing countries and poorest people. Cop28 will not achieve the desired objectives of definitively putting our planet on a net zero trajectory if we continue to address this matter in a doctrinarian way, ignoring the current realities. Given the growth in demand for energy, a significant part of that demand will come from the many in the developing world who continue to live in energy poverty. It is also a fact that renewables will not meet the growth of demand in the near future. If the debate of COP28 is framed by two camps, one calling for no cuts in fossil fuel production, including the most polluting form such as coal, and the other saying that the only solution to net zero is an end to fossil fuel production, then we will fail once again to achieve a viable outcome and not to give our world the energy it needs to grow and prosper. I believe that net zero by 2050 as a target can only be achieved by a combination of measures that include a reduction in the fossil fuel production and the removal of large polluters out of the supply chain. And we reiterate our call for the removal of subsidies, incentivizing the introduction of renewables at scale, addressing the demand for energy, upscaling technology, for example, carbon capture and storage, and reduction in deforestation and land degradation through incentives and incentivizing the protection and sustainable management of forests. Against this reality, Guyana underscores the need for us to collectively reset global relationships and imbue them with enhanced trust and solidarity. Only in doing so, we can aspire to confront the most pressing challenges of our era: climate change, conflicts, the energy and food crisis, and achieving sustainable development. That means 3 priorities for the COP: agreeing a just, orderly and affordable transition away from excessive fossil fuel use, ensuring at scale and accessible climate finance for a developing world that is of a scale that matches what needs to be done, and agreeing on action at scale to maintain tropical forests and advance sustainable land use. Specifically, on tropical forests, the COP must finally turn the promise of climate action into reality. Halting and reversing forest loss globally by 2030 is potentially 1/3 of the available solution to keep 1.5 degrees in reach. Finance is key, and Guyana is pleased to co-chair the Carbon Markets Working Group of the Forest and Climate Leadership Partnership, consisting of 30 countries. Along with our partners in the SCLP, we will be working to build high-quality carbon markets so that forest communities and countries can prosper while keeping nature intact. In Guyana, back in 2008, we were the first developing country to produce a low-carbon development strategy, or LCDS. We maintain one of the world's most intact tropical forests, have one of the world's lowest deforestation rates, and store more than 19.5 gigatons of carbon dioxide, equivalent in that forest. We are a carbon net positive country and aim to stay there. We accept the responsibilities that come with being a new oil producer. Our economy will grow more than 3-fold while keeping energy-related emissions flat. We are building an ecosystem service economy with forest carbon markets generating 4.5% of government income this year alone. Forest carbon markets are also creating revenue for more than 500 LCDS projects across indigenous and other communities, and funding one of Guyana's biggest ever investment in adaptation. So to conclude, Guyana will continue to be a world leader in aligning food security, energy security, and climate security. We stand in solidarity with everyone who is working to create a better future, especially in developing countries. And we will always put practical solutions before abstract theories so that we can play our part in finally bringing climate stability within reach. I thank you.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Emmanuel Macron, the President of France. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci, Mesdames et Messieurs, chefs d'État, de gouvernement, Mesdames, Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames, Messieurs les ambassadeurs. Je veux remercier Monsieur le Président, cher Mohamed Ben Zayed, pour l'accueil de cette conférence et son organisation. Tout protocole observé, je voulais essayer de ne pas répéter beaucoup de choses qui ont été déjà dites, même si c'est toujours difficile, et en particulier dans les discours d'ouverture, mais de faire quelques points d'action sur le moment où nous parlons et ce qu'il convient de faire dans les prochains mois et prochaines années. Il me semble que la priorité des priorités est que les pays les plus avancés sortent des énergies fossiles. Et donc nous avons les accords de Paris qui donnent une trajectoire. La France est engagée sur cette trajectoire. Nous la respectons sur les dernières années, mais nous savons que pour la respecter, en particulier jusqu'en 2030, et c'est vrai pour beaucoup d'autres pays, pour ce qui nous concerne, il faudra multiplier par 2,5 notre niveau d'effort, sachant que ces 5 dernières années, on l'a déjà multiplié par 2. Mais rien ne doit nous divertir de cette ambition. Et je veux ici vous dire, ce ne sont pas des bonnes paroles, mais la France a un plan, nous l'avons présenté, nous allons le décliner, il est financé pour justement sortir des énergies fossiles et réduire ses émissions. L'Europe est tout entière engagée dans cette stratégie. En 2035, 100% des véhicules produits commercialisés en France comme dans le reste de l'Europe fonctionneront sans pétrole. On construit une stratégie dans le logement, on réduit massivement les émissions dans le secteur aérien et maritime. Et je veux saluer en particulier le formidable accord qui a été trouvé par l'industrie maritime de nos pays il y a quelques instants et qui va permettre de réduire les émissions très fortement d'ici 2030 et d'arriver à la neutralité carbone 2050 dans ce secteur. Et nous avons une stratégie complète de renouvelables, de nucléaire, d'hydrogène qui permet d'arriver à cet objectif. Dès 2030, les énergies fossiles seront largement minoritaires dans le mix énergétique français pour la première fois depuis la révolution industrielle. Et nous devrons définitivement tourner la page d'ici à 2040-45 du pétrole et 2050 du gaz. Les pays les plus émetteurs doivent désormais entrer dans cette logique de planification écologique et de transparence. Et à cet égard, le G7 a une responsabilité majeure, tout comme la Chine, qui est désormais le deuxième pays émetteur historique et qui a donc changé en quelque sorte de statut. Les acteurs privés de nos pays doivent aussi s'engager et je salue le lancement du One Planet Data Hub qui permet déjà de comparer la trajectoire de décarbonation de 400 des plus grandes entreprises mondiales. Deuxièmement, les pays émergents doivent sortir du charbon et c'est le deuxième combat après celui que les pays les plus riches doivent mener. En effet, s'il y avait une priorité absolue, c'est que les émergents sortent du charbon. En effet, on doit permettre aux émergents le rattrapage économique, c'est un élément de justice, mais ce rattrapage ne doit pas se faire sur la base d'énergies qui sont carbonées, et en particulier du charbon, et pour une raison simple, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, les centrales existantes qui se concentrent largement en Asie aujourd'hui émettront à elles seules suffisamment de CO2 pour que nous excédions la cible de 1,5 degré Celsius. Et donc, alors même que nous devrions chaque année retirer des capacités de production d'énergie basées sur le charbon, au moment où je vous parle, nous avons 500 gigawatts de nouvelles capacités de charbon qui sont en cours de planification. Et donc, s'il y a une absurdité au moment où nous nous parlons, s'il y a une vraie absurdité, elle est sur le charbon. Et donc, nous devons engager un virage absolu, majeur, complet sur ce sujet. D'abord, les pays du G7 doivent montrer l'exemple. Je saluais mon collègue Fumio Kishida qui est là et qui a eu à présider ce club, qui a été très courageux sur ce sujet. Mais les pays du G7 doivent montrer l'exemple et s'engager à mettre fin au charbon chez eux avant les autres, c'est-à-dire avant 2030. La France tiendra son engagement de sortir complètement et de fermer toutes ces centrales d'ici à 2027, c'est-à-dire sous le mandat qui est le mien. Je ne promets pas pour la suite, je promets, si je puis dire, maintenant. Ensuite, les pays les plus riches doivent aussi aider les émergents à sortir du charbon. Depuis la COP26 de Glasgow, le G7 a engagé près de 50 milliards de dollars dans des partenariats de transition énergétique juste, nos fameux JETP. On l'a fait avec l'Indonésie, le Vietnam, l'Afrique du Sud. Ce sont de bonnes méthodes. Il faut les poursuivre et les généraliser pour partout aider à sortir du charbon. Mais ce virage implique aussi d'être cohérent et on doit donc arrêter de subventionner les nouvelles centrales à charbon. Le G20 s'est engagé à Rome en 2021, mais on doit changer nos règles en matière de financement privé. Au moment où je vous parle, le secteur privé n'a aucune désincitation pour financer une centrale à charbon par rapport à du renouvelable ou autre. C'est totalement absurde. Et donc notre marché privé, notre système d'investissement dysfonctionne massivement et c'est choquant pour tout le monde. On doit donc inverser le système. Il doit y avoir dans les prochaines années un taux d'intérêt en quelque sorte pour le vert et un taux d'intérêt pour le brun. Et s'il y avait une priorité des financeurs, des agences de notation aujourd'hui pour être cohérents, ce serait de différencier ces taux d'intérêt et qu'il y ait un vrai spread, parce qu'on n'intègre pas du tout le risque climatique. Et aujourd'hui, dans notre manière de noter, dans notre manière de regarder les investissements, on n'est pas du tout en train de prendre en considération qu'on continue à financer des actifs qui seront complètement dépréciés dans quelques années et qui sont incohérents avec notre stratégie mondiale. Tout ça, on va essayer de le lancer avec la Banque mondiale et nos partenaires dans le cadre de l'initiative Coal Transition Accelerator demain. Troisième remarque, on doit absolument assumer de mettre la politique commerciale au service de la transition écologique. Et ça, c'est une autre aberration, très sincèrement, que je voulais mettre sur la table, parce qu'on investit aujourd'hui dans le verdissement de nos industries sur le plan national ou régional, mais on continue à libéraliser les importations de produits polluants sur le plan international comme si de rien n'était. C'est un pari perdant et c'est un pari décourageant. Et je le dis aussi très clairement, on demande beaucoup d'efforts, en Europe par exemple, pour décarboner l'industrie et l'agriculture. Si on continue à avoir les mêmes accords commerciaux que dans les années 80-90, parfois des accords commerciaux qui ont été négociés dans cette période, qui vont permettre de faire rentrer des pays dont les composantes carbone, les pratiques productives ne font aucun effort, ben, nos producteurs ne nous suivront plus. Et ils auront raison, parce qu'on est absurde. Donc on doit avoir un système qui permet d'engager tout le monde dans une stratégie. Je crois vraiment qu'on doit intégrer dans les règles de l'OMC nos règles climatiques. Il faut les faire rentrer dans le système. Et donc il faut complètement changer à cet égard et intégrer la clause climatique à l'Organisation mondiale du commerce pour aligner notre régime commercial aux accords de Paris. Et il y a quelques points très techniques mais essentiels à faire à cet égard. On doit pouvoir subventionner l'industrie verte. Ça peut être légitime, mais si ça correspond à un strict bénéfice climatique, et il faut que ce soit regardé par l'OMC, il faut tarifer le carbone comme le fait l'Union européenne. Ce n'est pas une discrimination commerciale, mais il faut le faire de manière cohérente avec l'objectif neutralité carbone 2050. Ça ne doit pas être un instrument pour bloquer le commerce, mais il faut donc que quelqu'un le vérifie. Et il faut aussi libéraliser le commerce des biens environnementaux plutôt que le commerce des biens polluants, pour permettre là aussi que la transition énergétique et écologique se diffuse beaucoup plus vite. Quatrièmement, personne ne doit avoir à choisir entre la lutte contre la pauvreté et la lutte pour le climat. Cette petite révolution, c'est celle qu'on a lancée il y a quelques mois à Paris, c'est ce pacte de Paris pour les peuples et la planète. On ne doit pas choisir entre le climat et la lutte contre la pauvreté. Chacun doit choisir son chemin. Il faut plus d'argent public et il faut plus mobiliser l'argent privé. On fera le point à 6 mois de ce pacte et il sera publié à l'occasion de cette COP. Macky Sall va devenir donc l'envoyé spécial officiel de ce pacte avec un secrétariat assuré par l'OCDE. Mais d'ores et déjà, on a pu mobiliser beaucoup plus d'argent commun en mobilisant plus la Banque mondiale et le FMI, je les en remercie. J'invite tous ceux qui ne l'ont pas fait à redistribuer leurs droits de tirage spéciaux du FMI. D'ores et déjà, on a pu mobiliser 110 milliards de dollars qui permettent de lancer dans 11 pays aujourd'hui des programmes spéciaux. Et ces programmes permettent de prévenir les incidents climatiques et de lutter contre la pauvreté. Il faut généraliser cela et c'est cet engagement de meilleure mobilisation que nous avons aussi lancé avec le Premier ministre Modi. Tout ça, plus largement, doit nous conduire à une transformation de l'architecture financière internationale qui a été pensée à une époque où beaucoup de pays qui sont présents dans cette salle n'existaient pas. Et il faut donc leur redonner une voix pour que ce soit juste, pleinement inclusif, et cette transformation profonde de notre gouvernance est une priorité. Ensuite, je voulais insister sur un point, nous ne devons pas perdre de vue la nécessité de monter en puissance sur l'adaptation. L'adaptation des modèles agricoles, notamment en Afrique, est un sujet clé. La Grande Muraille verte progresse et je m'en félicite. Et nous ne perdons pas de vue cet engagement dans lequel nous avons mobilisé il y a un peu plus de 2 ans plus de 13 milliards de dollars avec le roi Charles à l'époque et la communauté internationale. Nous avons également annoncé que nous investirions 150 millions d'euros dans le prochain cycle du Fonds international de développement agricole. Et je veux ici inviter tous les pays présents à participer en décembre à la reconstitution du FIDA qui va jouer un rôle clé dans la réconciliation justement de l'objectif agricole et de l'objectif climatique. Et c'est un combat indispensable parce qu'on ne peut pas demander aux pays africains de choisir entre le climat et la production agricole. Il faut faire les deux en même temps avec des modèles soutenables. Et la guerre en Ukraine nous a fait toucher du doigt que le modèle n'était pas soutenable. Parce qu'on a plein de pays qui, pour que leur modèle produise, avaient besoin d'engrais azotés, d'engrais phosphatés. Donc on doit les aider à produire chez eux davantage, à avoir un modèle productif, mais beaucoup plus décarboné. Et tout ça est un élément clé. C'est dans cet agenda que nous allons aussi lancer demain avec le Kazakhstan un One Planet sur la question de l'eau qui s'organisera en septembre prochain. Je me félicite des avancées qui ont été obtenues lors de cette COP, Président, sur les pertes et préjudices. La France financera jusqu'à 100 millions d'euros en fonction des éléments de gouvernance ce sujet. Mais je voulais insister sur quelques points à cet égard, parce que le débat avait beaucoup monté à Sharm el-Sheikh sur les pertes et préjudices. Il a été beaucoup porté par mon ami Mia Motley, qui a fait un travail formidable. Mais il faut qu'on fasse attention sur ce sujet à plusieurs points. D'abord, ne confondons pas la situation des pays à revenus intermédiaires et des pays pauvres. On a besoin de ce fonds, mais il devra d'abord aller vers les pays les plus pauvres. On a surtout besoin d'une réforme en profondeur de notre système assurantiel et réassurantiel face aux risques climatiques. Et ça pour les pays à revenus intermédiaires qui en ont besoin. Ce fonds doit nous permettre de faire cette réforme, d'avoir un buffer, une garantie. Mais on devra avoir des mécanismes qu'il faut distinguer selon les catégories de pays. Il faut tout de suite se le dire. Il faudra une gouvernance simple et claire, lisible. Mais il faudra aussi qu'on ait une approche pays par pays. Par exemple, nous allons mettre en place un premier partenariat pays sur l'adaptation et les pertes et préjudices avec le Bangladesh. La France y investira 1 milliard d'euros, donc vous voyez beaucoup plus que ce qu'on met déjà sur le fonds, parce que c'est une approche spécifique pays. On investira 1 milliard d'euros, le Fonds monétaire international y ajoutera près d'1,5 milliard de dollars grâce aux droits de tirage spéciaux, et c'est un élément clé de ce laboratoire qu'on veut faire sur les pertes et préjudices, mais il faudra une approche, là aussi, pays par pays. Au-delà de cela, il nous faut pour cela une vraie taxation internationale, et avec la Barbade, le Kenya et plusieurs autres, nous lançons officiellement lors de cette COP, une task force internationale qui devra justement rendre ses conclusions au G20 de Rio pour mettre en place une taxation internationale lors de la COP30. C'est une nécessité si on veut un vrai résultat, parce qu'on a besoin de lever plus d'argent pour financer notre lutte contre les inégalités et pour le climat. Enfin, le climat et la biodiversité sont indétachables. Et donc, pour cela, il nous faut insister sur le fait que nous devons continuer le combat pour la nature. Les forêts et les océans font partie de nos COP parce que ce sont des puits de carbone irrécupérables et un levier de solution extraordinaire pour la transition. C'est pourquoi, à l'occasion de cette COP, on va continuer la mise en place d'abord d'une technique commune, mais je veux qu'on avance et qu'on accélère sur une vraie bourse des mécanismes communs de carbone et de biodiversité. On doit emmener beaucoup plus d'argent privé vers les pays qui préservent leurs forêts et leurs écosystèmes. On a lancé ça à Libreville en début d'année. On va conclure avec la Papouasie-Nouvelle-Guinée, la Guinée et le Congo, les premiers, justement, packages nationaux forestiers. Et l'idée, c'est de dire on met des crédits publics et privés sur les pays qui préservent leurs forêts. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, on n'avait pas cette technique, et donc on met beaucoup d'argent pour faire de la reforestation, mais tout pousse des pays pauvres ou émergents à détruire leurs forêts aujourd'hui pour financer des activités économiques beaucoup plus rentables. C'est une urgence de mettre de l'argent dans ces approches pays par pays et d'avoir une méthodologie commune. Et nous investirons 500 millions d'euros dans les 4 prochaines années dans la protection des forêts suivant cette méthode. Et puis évidemment, c'est l'océan qui est aussi une priorité. Nous aurons l'honneur d'accueillir la conférence des Nations Unies sur l'océan en 2025. Notre ambition est d'élaborer un véritable compact pour l'océan avec du droit prescriptif, des changements internationaux très profonds pour préserver dans nos zones économiques exclusives, mais aussi au grand large, la biodiversité, pour mieux réguler justement la pêche et lutter contre la pêche illicite et réduire les pollutions en mer. Voilà les quelques éléments clés que je voulais ici apporter au débat, qui sont à la fois des solutions, des engagements de la France et des préoccupations sur lesquelles on doit accélérer l'agenda commun. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, pour votre attention, Mesdames et Messieurs.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE, Your Excellencies, Head of State and Government, Secretary General of the United Nations, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Mr. Simon Steele, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and privilege for me to address you all at this very important climate summit. I also wish to thank the government, the people of UAE for their hospitality to all the delegations since we came here. We've all been looked after very well. Allow me to first and foremost commend Your Highness and the government of the UAE for all of the things that you've been doing over the years in working towards mitigating climate change. This summit, ladies and gentlemen, comes at a time when the world is recording unprecedented levels of temperatures, high temperatures all over the world, and it's sending a clear message that action is needed now, in fact, yesterday, and not tomorrow. We, as Africa, as Zambia, are clear that this summit comes at a time when we cannot tolerate, absolutely not, any lack of action or suboptimal actions at this stage if we are to save our globe from climate damage. It is clear that only a paradigm shift going forward, will enable us to address the challenge of climate change effectively and ensure that we avert the devastating effects thereof. We have been on a business-as-usual path for too long. We cannot continue. Your Excellencies, let me hasten to say that the just transition is inevitable. And in Africa, we have already embarked on a journey where we are working towards ensuring that our energy mix comes from a renewable source base that is acceptable and will meet the minimums that are required to save our planet. We need strong international collaboration in this respect in order for us to successfully undertake the completion of the first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement. We look forward to strengthened commitments that will inform immediate and future climate action, including clear pathways to achieve emission reductions, enhance resilience, and the necessary finance flows to all the needy countries, especially the developing countries. It is also very important that confidence in this multilateral process is restored by delivering on previous commitments that were made. Zambia and Africa as a whole boast of resources, forests, that can help mitigate climate change. But it's very important that as we do what we call carbon trading, one, the markets must be structured, clearly structured, and very unambiguous. Number two, the pricing of the carbon credits is standardized so that the providers of those resources and the communities that live around there can get a fair return for looking after these forests, for the work they've been doing and the dependence they have on these forests. And only then are we able to attract those communities into the mitigation measures that are necessary. Your Excellencies, this Cop28 as a COP of action requires to do a number of things. One, to ensure that the loss and damage fund is fully operational. And we want to thank the countries that have made the contributions towards this fund. Number two, to undertake a comprehensive global stocktake exercise and identify clear interventions to bridge the glaring gaps in meeting the goal of the Paris Agreement. Number three, adopt a robust framework on the global goal on adaptation, complete with indicators to ensure that we can collectively track progress in building resilience. Number four, Your Excellencies, share experiences and best practices, especially the countries of the North that have advanced in this area already need to share these best practices with the developing countries. And finally, Your Highness, you can count on the support of the African group of negotiators and Zambia in ensuring that we support all efforts needed to mitigate the negative effects of climate change. As failure is not an option, we all have to succeed and we have a responsibility to act correctly. I thank you for your kind attention.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, will have a special high-level segment for heads of governments. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
COP28 は、初のグローバルストックテイクを完了させますが、世界はまだ 1.5 度目標の道筋に乗ってはおりません。軌道修正のためには、2030年までの行動が決定的に重要となります。2050年ネットゼロの達成、全温室効果ガスを対象とする経済全体の総量削減目標の設定、および2025年までの世界全体の排出量ピークアウトのすべてが必要です。日本は2030年度に 46% 減、さらに 50% の高みに向け挑戦を続けています。すでに約 20% を削減しており、着実に進んでいます。G7 広島サミットで確認されたように、経済成長やエネルギー安全保障と両立するよう、多様な道筋の下で、すべての国が一緒になり、ネットゼロという共通の目標を目指そうではありませんか。日本は GX 推進法に基づき、成長志向型カーボンプライシング構想を実行していきます。来年には世界初の国によるトランジションボンドを国際認証を受けて発行いたします。排出削減、エネルギーの安定供給、経済成長の3つを同時に実現する GX を加速させ、世界の脱炭素化に貢献します。アジアでは、アジアゼロエミッション共同体の枠組みの下で、各国との共同を進めており、今月には初の首脳会合を開催する予定です。日本は徹底した省エネと再エネの主力電源化、原子力の活用等を通じたクリーンエネルギーの最大限の導入を図ります。我々には太陽光の導入量が世界第3位となる実績があります。この文脈で日本は世界で再エネ容量を3倍とし、エネルギー効率改善率を2倍とするとの議長国の目標に賛同をいたします。合わせてクリーンエネルギーサプライチェーンの多様化に向け、公正で持続可能な事業環境をグローバルに整備することを目指します。また、排出削減対策の講じられていない石炭火力発電所については、各国の事情に応じたそれぞれのネットゼロへの道筋の中で取り組まれるべきです。日本は自身のネットゼロへの道筋に沿ってエネルギーの安定供給を確保しつつ、排出削減対策の講じられていない新規の国内石炭火力発電所の建設を終了していきます。官民合わせて700億ドル規模の支援を行うとの我々のコミットメントの実施も着実に進んでいます。その上で、世界銀行とアジア開発銀行に信用保管の供与を通じた合計約90億ドル規模の融資余力拡大に貢献する用意があり、またアフリカ開発銀行の新基金へも貢献をいたします。日本は人類共通の課題である気候変動問題に各国と共に取り組み、国際社会をリードいたします。ありがとうございました。
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement. It is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Abiy Ahmed Ali, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I come from a country where 70% of the population is youth. And what keeps me awake at night is how to live a better world for future generations. It has been more than 3 decades since climate change is a global political issue. Agreements have been adopted. We have made good strides in combining the climate agenda with the socio-political and economic dimensions of sustainable development, but the assessment of our actions under the global stocktake shows that we are far from the 1.5-degree target. This has a dramatic impact on the most affected countries. While activism is necessary, action is what will get us results. Success can only be measured by the actions we take, not by the decisions we make. As we gather here in the United Arab Emirates, a country recognized for having transformed a desert into a green heaven under the leadership and vision of the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. I applaud the strong commitment of the Cop28 presidency to climate action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa is a strong ally in fighting climate change, and we are striving to drive green growth both within the continent and globally. However, we remain highly exposed to the impact